7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Working Digital Day 3.
Thank you very much. I'm well aware that that is as close to the X Factor as I will ever get. I'm not going to sing to you tonight, I'll leave that to the professionals. Good afternoon and a massive welcome back to day 3 of Working Digital. You've probably already realised the smile in my face is a little bit cheesier than normal, and that's simply because it hasn't left me from last night. Those of you who were in the room last night will know exactly what I mean. Those of you who weren't in the room, where were you? Because you missed an absolute belter. Last night was all about the business of fun, and our speakers certainly delivered on fun. Absolutely. But what was more importantly, behind the fun were real true business messages, real value, ideas, tips and tricks, and business advice that we can all apply to business no matter the size or shape of our businesses. So thank you very much for coming along last night. I hope you did. And again, welcome back for tonight. One of the things I wanted to very quickly pick up on, Fraser, could you quickly switch the signal if that's all right? We ran out of time last night to talk about a lot of things that I wanted to come on and then discuss, purely because it was going so well and I didn't want to interrupt the wonderful speakers. One of the key themes last night that a lot of them touched upon was using your influencers, using your audience and working out who you know and how you can use them. You know, Grant talked about courting the celebrities and getting celebrities to talk about you and endorse you and the reach that that can have. And I encourage all businesses, if you have that opportunity, don't think that it's beneath you. Use it for your advantage. Iron Brew, they gave a very specific example of they tried to actually target who was the most influential tweeter in Scotland. And that's who they used to get a key campaign message out to everyone. Identifying your influencers. I'm going to show you just a little tip. This is maybe how Iron Brew did it. I don't know. They probably have more expensive tools than what I'm going to show you. But this is a free tool called WeFollow. It's a website, wefollow.com. It's not rocket science. It's not properly scientific. It's free and it's easy, and it will begin to allow you to find the influencers, in this case on Twitter, that might allow you to talk to help spread your business message further. What I've got on screen at the moment are the key influencers. I imagine the chap from Iron Brew had this on his screen, looking at the key influencers in Glasgow and Scotland. As you can see at the moment, Glasgow 2014, no surprise, they are the #1 spot. If they were going to do it all again today, they'd start by trying to talk to them to get the message out. If we quickly scroll down, amazingly, they named him last night. He's still here. Where is he? There he is. Richard Mackay. That was who they identified a couple of years ago as the most influential Scottish tweeter. And something like this helps you find them. Now, he's not #1 anymore. He's #9. But I'll tell you what, anyone who can get on that list in the top 10 has to be worth talking to, has to be worth engaging with, and has to be worth keeping an eye on. Because that clearly is a list of people that you need to know. Right, moving on. Was that subtle enough? Can you switch that back, please, Fraser? Thank you. Moving on, a little bit of housekeeping, as we typically need to do. As we've always said, I'll skim over this because most of you have heard this now already. Mobile phones, turn them on, engage with us, talk to us. Why? Well, we can do it in a number of ways on Twitter, our hashtag #workingdigital, or at @working_digital, sorry. And again, just to confirm, last night the social media went absolutely ballistic. As of this morning, we had a social media reach of 3 million. That's just over 2 nights. 3 million in 2 nights. I mean, it's really, keep talking, keep engaging with us. That's what the conference is all about. You can talk to us on Facebook as well, @/workingdigital. And of course, our website, www.workingdigital.co.uk. In terms of the website, you all know what it looks like. Just a little recap. If you have missed any of the content from day 1 or indeed day 2, you'll find the majority of it up there. There are a few things we can't post for reasons I won't bore you with, but most of the content, if you have missed it or you do want a recap, go back and look at it on the website. While I'm on the website, again, a little thank you to all of our sponsors. This event would not be possible in the size and shape and scale and the ambition that we try to do for you without the support of our sponsors. So thank you personally for the investment that you put into this. Our primary sponsor, WorkSmart, and indeed everyone else, Broadband Cloud Solutions, Guy Hinks, 3D Printworks. If I can, for just 1 second, a wee special mention to Broadband Cloud Solutions. I realise they didn't get the chance to take the mic yesterday and give you a wee hello. We have Johnny here today who will potentially answer any questions or issues you've got around what they do. One of the reasons why you might want to visit Broadband Cloud Solutions soon, if not already, is a very simple one which some of you may not know about, and that is on Tuesday. Now, this has nothing to do with politics, so please nobody throw anything back at me. On Tuesday, Scotland got its own brand new domain name, .scot. Already, it's one of the fastest growing domain names, certainly in certainly this part of the world, but also UK-wide and beyond. So if you haven't already looked at securing your own business a .scot domain name, I urge you to do so, and Broadband Cloud Solutions are one of the places, other providers are available, where you might want to go and do that. Sorry, Johnny, I have to remain impartial. Other sponsors, Ayrshire College, Eureka Solutions, West of Scotland Loan Fund, and our venue, the Park Hotel. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We greatly appreciate it. So, we are here today to talk about the connected customer. This is today's theme. What do we mean by connected customer? We mean simply the fact that customers for every business have radically changed. Radically changed. Every one of them has at least one, probably two, sometimes three different types of mobile devices, phones, laptops, multiple iPads, computer screens. The work. Everyone is connected. Some people way too much. I always like to do a little bit of a survey. Hands up if you're, I realise where this is going, but play along with me. It's the last day, we get to do silly things. Hands up if you're on social media. Okay? Keep your hands up. Be honest. Hands up if you're on social media way too much. And that is why the theme today is the connected customer. Everyone is on it, everyone uses it, and everyone uses it to talk about anything and everything. On there chatting about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Having conversations with our friends about things we love, things we hate. Bad service, good service. There is a huge opportunity to take advantage of the connected customer. There is also a load of dangers that we need to be aware about because of the connected customer. Now, some of you will have heard me tell this story, but I'll be brief. It wasn't that long ago that I was in Marks and Spencer's, in the front of the queue, and the girl in front of me was having an argument with the sales assistant. Now, previously, that argument would have gone, blah, 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 give me the name of your manager. How that argument went was, blah, 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 smile, click. And I thought, well, there's a YouTube star tonight. Why? Because the customer is now 100% connected. What that means to us, typically, what we will make of it. Now, yesterday, Colin, my colleague here, currently on camera duty, got very annoyed, a little bit envious, when he said, Gary, the day before, brought you somebody over in America and I'm only taking you to London. Well, today I'm going to wind up Colin a little bit more. We're going to go all the way to, all the way to Canada, to Nova Scotia, and a lovely little town called Waverley. And I'm going to introduce you to a man who's going to tell us a little bit about what connected customers mean. And that man is Dave Carroll.
Hi there, my name's Dave Carroll, and I'm here to say hello to everybody at the Working Digital Conference in Kilmarnock. Gary Ennis was kind enough to ask me to say hello, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there myself. 5 years ago, almost to the day, I launched my video called United Brakes Guitars, which talked about my bad customer service experience with United Airlines. And the video went viral and it got really popular very quickly, and I wasn't expecting any of the things that happened. But in the last 5 years, I've had the opportunity to travel around the world and speak in remote places and very cool and interesting places, meeting really neat people, talking about customer service. And so I kind of feel like I've been taking a PhD in customer service all this time. And the big lesson that I've learned in customer service, I think, is that we are all connected. That you and I and everybody in the world have more in common with each other than we don't. And so sometimes people talk about maybe the 5 or 7 things, the best things you can do to improve customer service. I really think there's only one fundamental core value that you need to think about, and that is that we are connected. If you believe that, then everything you do in your organization will follow, and you'll become a more caring organization. You will think differently about the people that you employ, your suppliers, and most of all your customers. You'll see everybody as important, and it'll change, I think, the way employees feel valued and the way customers feel valued, and it'll increase loyalty. It's not only a better way to be just because it makes you feel better, but it also increases your profitability. So when I go around the world now and I get the opportunity to share these ideas with people, I try to give momentum to this idea of connectedness. And I hope maybe in some small way I can change the world myself. So I hope you have a great conference. Maybe next year I can come in person and say hello. And if you're ever in Waverley, come here to my Idea Lab and home office. I'd be glad to say hello to you in person. Thanks.
I personally think we should all take him at his word and just all turn up at Dave Carroll's pad in Waverley. The place looks so serene. No wonder he is so chilled if that's where he lives. If you've not heard the Dave Carroll story and the United Brakes Guitars story, I know most of you have, because most of you have heard me play it or talk about it at one of the training sessions over the previous years that we've been talking to one another. I urge you to go and look at that story. If you haven't heard about it, go onto YouTube, Google it, United Brakes Guitars, and watch the video, listen to the story. By all means, let me give the man's book a little plug as well, because it's a great read. Okay, moving along. Our first speaker of the day is from a company that, and certainly in my geeky digital world, is a giant among social media. It's a pleasure to have him here. He's going to explain a little bit about how to properly market to this connected world. Because if we just shout sales messages at them, well, we all know typically that's not going to work. Can I please welcome on stage Ryan Ball from Hubspot.
Actually, I'm just going to yell sales messages at you for the next 40 minutes or so. That's what I had planned on doing. No, thank you very much for having me. I was very, very excited to show and kind of take you through a little bit of what we see at HubSpot as some of the advantages of doing marketing in a permission-based world, so to speak. So a little bit of background on me. I've been with HubSpot now 4.5 years. Before then, I was in the educational industry. I understand that you guys had quite a performance yesterday with singing and such. Is that right? Yeah, I'm not going to sing today, but I was actually a performer for 10 years as well. So look on my LinkedIn and you guys can figure it out, because I'm not going to sit up here and say anything else beyond that. But nonetheless, I moved over to Dublin 2 years ago. I've helped set up our European operations for Dublin, and we've since opened offices in Sydney as well, right? So today I'm going to talk about context marketing, and really it comes down to the art of not sucking. And this is actually a self-photo portrait this morning before I had my coffee itself. So, but one of the first things you might be asking yourself is, why is there a sales guy up here talking about marketing, right? And the reality is, in our world, we work together, right? So this is just one of the pieces of content that we've created, but we believe at HubSpot in smarketing. And I realize how cheesy and American that sounds, so please, I apologize in advance. But the reality is, we've always set up our business to align sales and marketing together, right? So on the one hand, myself and my team might get together and write a few blog articles. We might help out with overall collateral, or help out with the copy of any emails that are happening, and certainly help out with any events that are coming up, some of which we're actually running in the UK next month. While on the other side, the marketing team, who has an exceptionally hard job, there's no doubt about it, but they'll jump on calls with us at any time, right? They'll make sure that they're giving us the requisite number of leads that we anticipate we need in order to hit our quotas and continue to grow at the revenue we do. And we essentially call this an SLA, a service level agreement between the two sides, and therefore it allows us to kind of work together in a little bit more amicable relationship than some of the other organizations that I've been around and also worked with in the past, where a lot of times sales and marketing are going head to head. So before we go anywhere, you might ask, how did we get here? I think the here got chopped off. I apologize there. But of course, this is Dorothy, and she's like, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. But the reality is that marketing has drastically changed over the last 10 years, right? Drastically changed. For most of us, this is what we considered marketing a little while ago, right? These massive billboards up on the highways, the motorways, whatever it might be, or even, I'm from Oklahoma in the US, so driving through the Midwest and seeing a beautiful billboard up on the side of a barn or a farmhouse, and really, it harkens you back to a bygone era, so to speak. But if it's a bygone era, then why are we still doing it, right? There's tons of this stuff, and essentially, it's just one big competition to gain your attention, right? And it's only gotten worse over time, right? Whether it's direct mail, whether it's TV adverts or radio adverts, whether it's newspapers, magazines, and those godforsaken telemarketers as well. The idea is people are always just reaching out and reaching out and reaching out, trying to interrupt us in our daily business. But when we talk about this connected customer, when we talk about the opportunities and the information that all of us have at our disposal at any given time, the power is actually in the hands of the consumer now, right? And I'm not going to do the show of hands, but certainly I'll speak for myself. Anytime I'm going to start my research on something, I go to Google first. Does that resonate with everybody in the room? Yeah? I have 2 small children as well, and whenever my wife was trying to figure out what car seat should we buy and what's the most recommended brand and which one is safest, she didn't go to the yellow pages. She didn't go to the adverts that she found in the magazines. She went to Facebook and asked other mothers, right? So this is what the industry looks like. This is what the world looks like. We have all the power in our hands. And stats actually back this up. These are only a couple of years old at this point, and I can only assume that it's gotten worse since then, but 91% of us in this room, fully 9 out of 10 of us, will unsubscribe from an email just about every day, right? 86% of us will skip ads on the television, yeah? Whether it's we call it TiVo or DVR back in the States, I think it's called Skybox here, right? We just end up skipping right through because it's much easier and it doesn't interrupt our days, right? And then beyond that, direct mail. Only 44% never open the direct mail. But I tend to get a flyer from Bed Bath & Beyond every Tuesday morning, and I can tell you it goes right into the rubbish bin at that point as well. So this is tough. Yeah? We're talking about all these other interruption-based channels that we've done, but then the consumers are just ignoring it outright. And the challenge is that marketers are not loved at the end of the day. Yeah? The reality is, this is a poll based on Gallup over in the US. Right now, stockbrokers and lawyers are seen in a more positive light than marketers on a daily basis. That sucks, right? That is not good at all. The good news for you guys is that we're slightly above the politicians and the car salesmen, right? So, yeah. And that's after my cup of coffee this morning, so that's what I look like afterwards. But the reality is we're dealing with kind of a bit of a personality disorder, yeah? All our lives and marketing drastically changes all the time. And this is actually off script, but I just ran an interview yesterday with a woman out of New York City. She's coming back to Ireland after she had done her J1 over there for a little bit. And whenever she was in school in Ireland, she said, I started all my studies in November, and then by the time the exams came around in May, the entire world of marketing had changed. And that's how quickly things are changing for us each and every day. So the old school methodology is essentially to get in their face when they're not looking, right? The sneak attack, whatever it might be. But tomorrow's approach is to get found when they are looking. How are you going to position yourselves to be up front and top of mind whenever individuals and companies and consumers are looking for your products and services each and every day? As I said, marketers tend to create a sucky experience, and this is about as good a picture as you can get for getting up in somebody's face, right? So I think there's opportunities, is all I'm trying to say. I think there's opportunities for us to do it a little bit better. But in order to sense those opportunities and see those opportunities, I'm going to provide just a couple of examples first to show. Now, this is an email that I literally get once a week, yeah? And it's exceptionally generic, and if you know anything about HubSpot's business, we have no problem generating leads. And that's all they're asking us, is if we want to go ahead and buy lists so we can call through. Now, there is a place for this in the world. Don't get me wrong, right? In terms of data and calling through lists for targeted customers, this, that, and the other. But it's not personal because it's not what we need. It's very generic. It says hi at the top, right? Hello to you too. So nice of you. Hope you're doing well. They really do not care if I'm doing well. We all know this, yeah? And I can say that as an American, right? Every American I've ever met says, hey, how you doing? It's just a salutation, so that's all they're trying to say to us. And then ultimately at the bottom they're saying, listen, you can get off of this email just by responding back, leave out. I've literally 6 times now I've responded back, and I yet get this email every Tuesday. So I might not have gotten it this Tuesday, which is good news, but nonetheless, it's spam. That's all it is. And spam is essentially the crap you don't want to eat. It's the crap that you don't want in your inbox, and it's the crap that you don't want on your forums or in your communities, right? Another such example, and this one's a few years old, but it's still very pertinent, is this interruptive-based marketing. And this is pretty poor example from Toyota. So you can see by the subject matter, it was a pretty tragic story. A teacher was hit outside of a school in Queens in New York, and yet you got this dorky guy jumping up saying, hey, come buy Toyota products. Yeah? It's just not the right way of going about doing business. According to the Urban Dictionary, pop-up ads are the reason that the internet sucks at this point. Yeah? And then, well, I had one more example. I'll get to that one here in a second. But essentially what we're saying here is by 2020, most interruptive marketing will be gone. Instead, it's going to be replaced by personalized, customized, and adapted marketing that essentially is based on what we've expressed as our behaviors and our interests, right? That's the way to get people involved. That's the way to get people engaged. And there's a variety of ways of doing this. I don't want anybody to think that you need really expensive tools to be able to do all this kind of stuff. Gary just brought up a great tool that's free on the internet, or the internets, as we say, right? In which you can go ahead and see what kind of influence various social media users have. HubSpot itself has a free tool as well, marketing.greater.com, where you can essentially put in your website, and we're going to tell you for free everything that's right and wrong with your website. Actionable things that you can take advantage of to at least make it a little bit more personalized and to speak to your target audience at the end of the day. And the last piece of it is, most marketing is selfish. Unfortunately, we'll pick on Toyota again. This is yet another example, but instead of having communication with people, instead of having conversations with people, this is an example from the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, in which all they did was take all these fake Twitter accounts and just flood Twitter with all these fake messages over and over and over and over again, right? I don't know, it would be like if we were having cocktails this evening and all I did was talk to you about my kids and how awesome they were without ever asking you anything about your lives or anything that was going on. My kids are pretty awesome, by the way, but we'll go ahead and table that. But no, all joking aside, it's not a two-way conversation. It's only a one-way conversation. And this is what it looks like, right? It's generic, it's interruptive, it's selfish. But what we want to do is turn it into a real-time dialogue. And that's exactly what the internet has done. The internet has turned marketing on its ear. Again, it's put the power in the hands of the consumers, in the hands of the communities, in the hands of the businesses and the procurement officers, right? And what it used to be was a one-way street, a controlled message from one to the other, yeah? A lot of times in my line of business, we see websites that are quite a few years old at this point, and it's essentially just a brochure on the website pushing out information and all the goods that they offer, right? We see the more successful websites as the ones who tend to educate their prospects, as the ones who tend to bring value to the conversations as they go forward. So to get less sucky at marketing, instead of being generic, we need to understand our audience. And I'll try and give you a couple of tips on how to do so. Instead of being interruptive, we need to aim to be remarkable, right? And I realize that that's a kind of a cliched term, if you will, but remarkable in terms of something that's worth remarking upon, right? Our founders, Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah, wrote a book called Inbound Marketing a few years ago, and they actually just 2 weeks ago re-released it with updates because, right, the internet's changed quite a bit in the last 4 years, and this is one of their central themes, is providing a remarkable experience for your consumers. And at the end, instead of being selfish, instead of only thinking about ourselves, right, let's try and promote some value. Let's try and educate our populace. Let's try and at least get at the table with them to have a conversation and understand what their needs are so we can try and present an offer or a solution that's going to help them out. So this is inbound marketing methodology, right? And I say this with a bit of pride because we invented it. And when I say we, I had nothing to do with it 8 years ago. But the company itself invented it whenever Brian and Dharmesh were getting their graduate degrees. It was part of their graduate thesis. And it's really pretty simple, right? It's just a matter of attracting folks into your site and from there converting them based on the value that you've provided them, ultimately closing them into customers, but probably most important of all is delighting them as a customer, turning them into a net promoter of your business. You can only do that by understanding who they are and having proper conversations with them moving forward. So the first step is to understand your audience, right? That's at the heart of any successful inbound marketing campaign. Now, a great inbound marketer, should be able to figure out who their different buying personas are, right? Who are the various kinds of people that they come in contact with each and every day? Is everybody familiar with the term persona, or is this fairly new to folks in the audience? Show of hands, yes, no? Okay, cool. I see a couple of people out there, so I don't want to overwhelm you with this because everybody has a different approach to personas. Ours, right, are really pretty simple. There's all of 3. And we had our conference just last week, which literally 4 years ago started out about this size, maybe a little bit bigger, 100, 150 people. And just last week it was over 10,000 people showed up to Boston to be part of the inbound movement moving forward. And our founder, yeah, well, next year I hope, but I don't think everybody would fit in this room necessarily. So, but nonetheless, our founder sat down with a marketer of a huge, huge worldwide company, right? Somebody who, quite frankly, is not a good fit for HubSpot, to be realistic. And she was going through all of her personas and this, that, and the other. And finally, he just interrupted her and he goes, I'm sorry, our stuff's like kindergarten compared to what you guys are doing. And that's the reality. Our first persona, our core audience, is Marketing Mary. And all we've done is we've tried to identify who is this individual that's visiting our site, right? Who is it? A lot of times it's a professional marketer, a VP, director, manager level, right? Mid-sized company, maybe 25 to 200 employees. Got a small marketing team. Maybe it's 5 of them. Maybe it's 3 of them, me, myself, and I, right? Usually in their 40s, married, 2 kids. But really, it's the goals and the challenges. Those are the things that we try and speak to as we create any content, yeah? The next one is Owner Ollie. And this was our first persona that we ever developed. Usually it's a company of 1 to 10 employees, something along those lines. This guy has every title on his business card. Because he's not just the CEO, right? He's also the CTO, he's the CMO, he's the head janitor, he's the secretary, right? I think that probably resonates with a few people in this room as well. A lot of things going on, pulling hair out, just trying to figure out where to focus. But what we know about this guy is at the end of the day, he really cares about leads. So we're going to try and generate as much content to help him generate those leads and have those conversations with his core audience at the end of the day. And then this is a fairly new one. This is, for me and my title, what I'm in charge of in Europe now, is our corporate Kathy, our enterprise sales. Usually a much larger company, right, up to 2,000 employees. They have a much larger team. But really what they're focused on isn't necessarily so much the leads. Hopefully they've generated leads by this point. It's how do they engage with these leads in a meaningful manner? How do they communicate with these leads, whether it be on a weekly basis, on a quarterly basis, whatever it might be, and what are the various offers or ways that they can communicate on their website in a more dynamic fashion. So they're all looking for 3 different things at the end of the day, right? The challenge that we see right now in Europe is that only 23% of the European audience is actually focused on reaching the right audience, the right persona, and converting those individuals into names in your database, right? Emails that you could actually speak with, yeah, and send messages to, targeted messages to. So one of the big things that I would challenge everybody in this room on is to sit down and think about the personas. You might have 1 persona, you might have 5 personas. I would recommend that you be more simple than sophisticated on this. I sat down with literally a janitorial company the other day, and this gentleman came in and you know, he's doing everything. He's head of sales, he's head of marketing, he's helping out at the front desk, and he walked in with this 30-page docket of all the different personas they had. I said, similar to what Dharmesh said to the woman he spoke with, you got too many. You got way too many, so let's pare this back, focus on the core ones, and then from there you can go into sub-personas if you need to. You can start to identify what are the different individuals. Because I guarantee you, we communicate very differently with a CMO in the US than we do a CMO in the UK, than we do a CMO in France, than we do in, right? We can't just bottle up the same message and expect to get the same results. So we have sub-personas that we try and speak with from there. Essentially, a successful inbound marketing strategy is anchored around your different buyer personas. That's all I'm trying to say here, all right? The next thing is to aim to be remarkable. And I fully understand if a lot of you are rolling your eyes at the word remarkable in here, but for me, it's more about a mindset, right? How are we going to go ahead and attack the market by creating content that adds value to the conversation? But not just content that creates value, right? But it also needs to solve a pain point for them. Or quite frankly, it could just entertain at the end of the day. Anything to help build your brand, anything to help position yourself as a thought leader, somebody who's a trusted advisor in your industry, and therefore bring people into your circle, right, into your sphere of influence, and really help kind of lead them along the path that might actually help solve some problems for them moving forward. And the way that we kind of approach this in terms of being remarkable is we take a look at all of the web, every last page of the web, right? And I have very long days. No, we take a look at the web, and within our industry, we ask ourselves, okay, what are some things that our personas would be willing to pay for, right? And one such example, as you see here, is the Ultimate Guide to Building Landing Pages. This company's selling it for $39 over in the US. We feel like we can give some of this away, high value, for a little bit cheaper than that, right? The next one is a social media boot camp, right? $199 to buy this one. And even the third one would be ready-to-use HTML email templates for $25, right? $125 value, though, so that's a pretty good deal that we have going on there. What we do is we take this information based on our expertise and we start to repurpose it. Now, we don't take their stuff, don't get me wrong, but we take our own expertise and start to repurpose it and use it in terms of free templates for calls to action, as an example, right? A lot of companies, especially small companies, have to work with web designers and graphic designers and this, that, and the other, and it becomes very difficult for them to build various calls to action to affix to their website. We'd rather go ahead and give them some templates to help out with this. Just take it and throw it onto the web page. What you can see is this was a fairly successful campaign for us, right? So in a period, I think this was a 9-month time frame, something along those lines. In that period, there were over 123,000 people who came to this page alone, of which almost 60,000 people filled out the form, right? Now what you'll see is the submissions versus the new contacts, very different number, right? So 60,000 people, a lot of those people were already part of our database. So this is an opportunity for us to further identify who they are and continue to nurture them with more relevant content. But of those 60,000, 4,000 were new names in our database. New names that we had never met before, never even understood. And of that, 32 customers. So in a 9-month time frame, right, we were able to take something that we found of value, repurpose it, and essentially help generate revenue for ourselves. Another example is 250 holiday stock photos, right? A lot of marketers hate going all over the internet and trying to find, okay, what kind of clip art and what kind of photos can I find that I won't get in trouble for from a copyright perspective. So literally, 3 of our marketers walked around the Hubspot offices in Cambridge and took 250 photos with a nice camera that one of the staff had. Most of them are very, very funny, so feel free to download it. I promise I won't let my staff call you if you download this stuff, right? We won't be bothering you. But the same results kind of applied. 137,000 people, 62,000 of which submitted the form, of which there was almost 7,000 new leads and more customers. So the idea is being remarkable is something that you strive for. It's a mindset, right? It's not just marketing fluff. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to back away from those interruptive techniques that we talked about and essentially provide value to the individuals, something that they would likely pay for elsewhere. If we can provide it for free, insights, guidance, for some of you in the room, it might be a free consultation as an example, right? These are ways that you can help build credibility within your community, within your core prospects, and essentially generate more business. And the third piece is to promote that value, yeah? So you've done all this hard work, right? You've created some really cool content. Maybe it's an ebook that's all of 3 pages long. Maybe it's a free consultation. Maybe it's just a couple of blog articles that you repurposed into an ebook or a white paper, whatever it might be. But if you just let it sit there, right? One of my colleagues in the States says, if you just let your website sit there and there's no way to lead people back to it, or if you create content that can't easily be found, it's just like having a billboard in the middle of a desert. Yeah? Nobody's going to see it, nobody's going to access it, nobody's going to use it. So promoting that value, right, is one of the most important aspects of this. So marketers are always going to ask how to do more content, right? But the right question to ask is, how can I distribute it to more people? How can I turn this into a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of equation? Yeah? And really use that organic or grassroots campaign to get the information out there as quickly as possible. One of the ways that we do it is we take a look at our various distribution channels, yeah? And these numbers are going to be different for every business in the room right now, and that's absolutely fine. But we know how many people are subscribed to our blog, as an example. We know how many email names we have in our database, how many Facebook followers we have, how many Twitter followers we have. And these numbers aren't correct, right? It's just a good working frame to kind of start with. And of those, based on our historical averages, what's the overall engagement rate? So essentially, anytime I create a new piece of content and I start to promote it through these channels, whether it's the blog, email, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Zing, whatever it might be, Google+, right? We can start to identify, okay, of X number of people with a Y% conversion rate or engaged audience, we can anticipate Z in terms of the total number of people who are going to access this and come through. So you start to understand what the ROI of any of these campaigns might be and start to truly see, okay, if you start even reverse engineering it further, of all the opportunities that I have, how many are likely to become a customer of mine or whatever it might be, you can really start to generate the ROI off of something pretty quickly. And the idea is if you spend 10 hours developing a piece of content, you should spend 10 hours promoting it, right? If you spend an hour developing a piece of content, you spend an hour promoting it. Whatever the number is, it needs to be balanced. It needs to be the requisite number on both sides to truly ensure that it's going to be successful and hit the marketplace as you would anticipate. And beyond that, leveraging your audience is exceptionally important, yeah? And when I say leveraging your audience, maybe it's your professional network, maybe it's your family, your friends, whatever it might be. But as an example, I have probably over 500 people on LinkedIn that I'm connected with. Anytime I write a blog article, I'm going to go ahead and send it to them individually, yeah, which is easy to do through LinkedIn, and ask them to share it with others if they found value in it. Yeah. It's been pretty successful doing something like that. Last couple of blog articles that I've personally written, and I barely speak English for God's sakes, right, is the last few blog articles I've written have gotten well over 1,000 views. I've gotten many more LinkedIn connections because of this. People are reaching out as a trusted advisor, so to speak, to help them with their interview policies or help them with setting up a sales team or whatever it might be. And this is something that I never would have had access to otherwise. So simply by leveraging those relationships, leveraging my coworkers, whatever it might be, it started to spread a bit like wildfire. It's the same for you and your website. It's the same for any blog articles you do, whatever it might be. The challenge is we want to make it easy for them, right? So if you create an ebook or if you write a blog article, throw some lazy tweets out there and ask your friends to go ahead and do so. HubSpot has a lot of employees now. I started when there was 150 employees. We're up to over 800 right now. But literally every time we create a really cool piece of content, you can bet, like clockwork, each employee is going to get an email in the morning saying, hey, really exciting product launch. If everybody could just go ahead and tweet once from a lazy tweet perspective, yeah? So when you consider how many people that's going to end up touching, I don't have that many Twitter followers myself, but some of my colleagues have thousands, if not tens of thousands. That one single tweet is going to go ahead and spread to those people, continue to spread to their network. It becomes very much a network effect. But it's hard to do unless you make it easy for folks, right? But the moment you do so, it goes to all the channels, right? From Twitter, it's going to back over into LinkedIn, it's going to back over into Facebook, it's going to go Google+, whatever it might be. It really does create a great opportunity to get more and more eyeballs onto your website, onto your products and services, and essentially onto your expertise to really help them move forward. The next thing is, make it even easier in terms of emailing it to their friends and family, right? Emailing it to their other colleagues, whoever it might be. Whenever I'm training my new staff and they're coming in, you know, they have this problem a lot of times whenever we're talking to businesses and they're like, I just don't see, you know, nobody's on Twitter for us, right? Nobody's on Twitter. They don't really care about this, that, or the other. It's like, oh. All right, well, maybe they're not on Twitter, but what if one of them is on Twitter? Or one of them is actually on LinkedIn and your target persona is a CTO of a company that has maybe 50 employees. I'm just making it up off the top of my head. If they tweet that, who do you think's following them? I said, well, probably other CTOs at similar sized companies. It's like, yeah, right? And if they email this information on to their friends and their colleagues, who do you think, what are the titles of those individuals? And it's probably like a director of technology or a CTO, a CIO, whatever it might be. Exactly, right? But you got to make it easy for them in order to essentially share it. So there's very easy ways to do so. You can do it with free tools, you can do it with HubSpot if you wanted to, right? But the idea is just to make this very much a network effect. I put the clip, you know, you see that now, so, yeah, sorry. Seated to the people with the same interests. This is Kieran Flanagan. He's actually our director of marketing for the EMEA office, right? And the way that he approaches Facebook is very analytically. Very analytically. The modern marketer is all about data. The modern marketer isn't necessarily as much about brochures and aesthetics, right? So when he creates a piece of content that he leverages his team for, leverages his network for, right, he's going to identify exactly who he's trying to get in touch with and utilize Facebook or Twitter or Google, whatever it might be. It becomes really easy to do because Facebook allows you the opportunity to get very, very detailed and very granular in exactly who you're going to send it out to. So using that CTO as an example, you can essentially identify, okay, I want to send this out to a specific geographical location for all the folks who have CTO or something along those lines in their title, and it's going to end up showing in their stream at some point. It makes it very accessible for them. It's the same with Twitter, right? Being a part of interest groups or being part of various hashtag groups or whatever it might be, following those along and essentially getting them moving forward only helps you out. And then my favorite personally from a business perspective is the LinkedIn groups. Yeah, I'm only a member of maybe 20 LinkedIn groups, whatever it might be. But by utilizing tools that can actually post this for you, do. Again, HubSpot's one such example. Hootsuite is another great example, right? That you can join all these groups, and then the moment you create content, simply a click of a button will go ahead and disperse that or disseminate it to those various people. So again, the network effect is very much in effect. Now, we feel like paid content discovery is going to be big. I don't know how relevant it is for some people in this room. You know, it might be relevant for all of you. It might be relevant for none of you. But we don't necessarily think that it's the paid content that you should go after. HubSpot is very much an inbound agency, right? Instead, we believe that co-marketing is going to be a lot bigger. So as an example, right, we did some co-marketing stuff with a few agencies throughout the UK, right? We did a co-marketing event with Evernote, as an example. We did another co-marketing event with LinkedIn, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that you could call any of these companies immediately and do so, but when we talk about co-marketing, maybe it's other people in your community, right? Maybe there's shared interests or things that might serve both of you, right? Maybe you're a lawyer, a solicitor in this room, and doing some sort of co-marketing with an accountant, yeah, or a financial advisor doing some sort of accounting or co-marketing with a real estate agent, whatever it might be. Those are the kinds of co-marketing events that can really serve you well. Create a podcast, do something to at least get the message out there and get people more and more interested in both sides of it moving forward. And then we always believe in the dark arts, and I know that sounds, you know, sinister, but it's really not. The whole idea is anytime we look at our marketing, anytime we look at those individuals that we're trying to hire and bring onto our team, we're looking for those who are digital in nature, right? Who are analytical in mindset, whose reach from a social media perspective especially is fairly immense, and who really understand how to create content, yeah? There's actually a free ebook on our website, if you're interested, that you can download, essentially Hiring for the Dark Ages. And this is the way that I would challenge each and every one of us to start thinking of it. Become more of a digital native. Become more analytical in your approach. Try and build your overall reach from a social media perspective, yeah? And always be thinking content. It's embarrassing for me to admit, being at HubSpot for 4.5 years now, that I just started blogging 2 months ago, yeah? Just started, and to be fair, I thought like bloggers were, I don't know, guys my age who were living in their mother's basement, that kind of thing. So, but I've seen how it's impacted businesses. I've seen how it's drastically changed perspective for people. One of my favorite examples is this guy named Marcus Sheridan. He calls himself the Sales Lion now, which I think is kind of funny, but he started out as a pool salesman on the Atlantic coast in the US. And he ended up going down the inbound marketing route. He ended up buying HubSpot, to be transparent about it. And it worked out so well for him that he's now a digital agency himself, right? He now has hundreds of people coming and asking for his products and services each and every month. And it simply started with a blog a few years back. And that one blog got picked up by the New York Times in reference to. And from there, it spread like wildfire. So content is very much a key. But even more important is the context in which you market to them. Because if it's just blatant content, if it's just pushing our own messaging, if it's just the same static message to everybody, then it becomes very difficult, very, very difficult to actually resonate with different groups of people and those personas that we've identified. Yeah? So, you know, this is very much HubSpot branding, but it's time to transform your marketing into something that people love. So doing all of that content and doing all of that outreach, right? Blog articles, social media messages, whatever it might be, that's going to lead people into your site and into your content itself, yeah? But you want to understand those buyers, right? Just to kind of finish up on it, you want to understand those buyers, understand and personalize it to each and every one of them. So maybe one week you're going to write a blog article for, if you're a lawyer, maybe it's for family estate planning, as an example. Maybe the next week as that lawyer, you're going to be talking about, I don't know, car insurance. Bad examples, I realize this, but nonetheless. The idea is to at least be speaking to different people at different points in their lives and what they might express interest in, yeah? And a good example is, this is Brian and this is Dharmesh, right? They have very drastic differences in terms of their interests online. But when you go to Amazon, right? We all go to Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk. Yeah, it's the same interface, but we're all getting presented something different based on the interests that we've shown up to that point. So for Brian, he's a big Deadhead. He loves the Grateful Dead, and he loves the Red Sox, right? And he's big into venture capital and startups themselves. Whereas Dharmesh is very much an engineer. He's a developer, so getting into Python and all that stuff, but he also has a new baby, so looking at children's books. That's the same way that we want to try and approach it with each and every one of our customers. Essentially creating that content around optimized pages. What are the various keywords, keyword phrases that are going to lead people into your site in the first place? And then developing that context to send them the proper email, to send them the proper social media message. When they come back to your site, to send them the proper kind of entry point to really make sure that they continue to engage with you. So as we look at this, what have we learned, right? And what are the takeaways that we have from this? The first thing is really take time to understand your audience. Yeah? Take a step back and ask, who are the people that I'm interacting with each and every day? I recommend you go and interview some of your top clients, your top customers. Say, hey, why the hell are you doing business with me? What is it that got you to work with me, right? And starting to understand exactly who they are, and then start to roll that out to the rest of them. Always aim for remarkable, right? Aim to provide really valuable content, really valuable content, and then promote that value itself. Now, this is Joe Biden. I'm not going to get into politics, right? But I think the picture itself tells at least 1,000 words. He just exudes confidence. He exudes power. He exudes that he knows what he's up there, and he's promoting the value that he has. Yeah. So, again, if you're interested in learning more about some of this, and what are some of the trends that are happening, specifically in Europe, right? Go to the Hubspot site or go to stateofinbound.com, yeah, and download this report. There's some really interesting tidbits in there. The good news is you're not going to get a call from any of my salespeople from this site, yeah, because that's not the way that we approach it. So download this information, generate a lot more interest, and just and make sure that you fully understand exactly what you're trying to do with your market itself. And if you need to, feel free to reach out to me, right? I am passionate about helping small businesses. It's why I came over to HubSpot in the first place. I had a choice to make. I could either go make a lot of money for some already rich people or fight for the other guy, right? And that's why I chose to go the HubSpot route. So follow me on Twitter, link up with me, or email me directly. More than willing to sit down for 20 minutes and provide some additional collateral that will help each and every one of you, all right? Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Ryan Ball from HubSpot. Thank you very much, Ryan. That was so useful. Just stay there. We're going to have a few questions, if that's all right.
But I wasn't sure.
If that's okay. I've got a couple. I know Gary will have a few as well. Great that I think you've taken something that sometimes has a lot of mystery around it, a lot of science around it, and made it really practical and something that we can all do. It amazes me how few people actually take the time to write down their persona and to understand the audience. Do you have any suggestions for businesses in the room where there might be a conflict within the business, where you might have an owner who's very aspirational about attracting one type of customer, and the marketing director who knows the reality, we're not getting these customers, we're getting something different? How should they resolve that?
Oh, that's a great question. We come across it all the time whenever I'm having consultations or analysis with various companies, because a founder or a CEO might think that they're going to go after the Fortune 500 company, right? And they think they can just call straight into the CEO at that Fortune 500 company and start moving forward from there. That might be the persona that you're ultimately trying to go to, but I think that you need to build some sort of credibility within the organization in the first place. And in order to do so, you probably do need those second, third, fourth personas to identify, depending on what you sell. If you sell widgets, right, then what is going to speak to the individual who's doing more and more research about how to promote those widgets or whatever it might be. So I'm not saying this in the most articulate fashion, but I would tend to err on the side of the marketer in this case, as long as they know what they're talking about, right? There's that caveat, but because you need to be able to have conversations with a variety of people to at least build consensus within that kind of organization and move them forward from there. So. And
you actually give the persona a name, and what, you stick them up on the wall somewhere for everyone to see?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting in our board meetings, right? There's a teddy bear called Molly. And she is always sitting in one of the chairs for the board meetings itself. And it's essentially Mary and Ollie, right, two of the personas that we identified. So we couldn't throw Kathy in there because it would have just been all messed up in the name. But really, each and every interaction, anything that we do from a product perspective, anything we do from a marketing perspective, anything we do from a messaging perspective, it's the most awkward thing in the world, but all of a sudden one of them will turn and say, well, what does Molly think, right? And the idea is to put your customer first. The idea is to at least get in their mindset, their mind frame, and try and see what is it that makes them tick. Yeah, I personally think far too often businesses think selfishly and what's in it for me and what's in it for our bottom line and what's in it for, making sure we generate as much revenue as we can. But if we actually put the customer first at all times, that's really what inbound marketing is about, right? We're just trying to educate the population. If you put the customer first and how can you promote value, then I think you'll be in a good spot.
I could see some people getting a bit frightened when you started talking about creating content, and the point you were making was however long you spend creating it, spend the same amount of time promoting it. You talked about 10 hours creating a bit of content, 1 hour creating a bit of content. With all the insight and resources that HubSpot has, do you have any insight into how long it might take a business like these folks to create a decent bit of content?
Yeah, well, I mean, content is such an ambiguous term as well, right? I mean, it can be very broad in nature. It really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to put out a 250-page ebook, that's not going to take 10 hours. That's going to take a couple of months, yeah? The way that I tell small business owners to approach it each and every day is to maybe try and create an ebook once a quarter. Yeah, and an ebook has to be no more than 6 to 10 pages, something along those lines. It can be heavy in graphics, it can be heavy in pictures, whatever it might be aesthetically pleasing, but that's a good conversion point on your website in the first place. And the easiest way to do so is just take all those blog articles that you've been writing once or twice a week and repurpose it into an ebook itself. Most blog articles should be anywhere between 600 and 800 words, something along those lines. Anything more, if you think of society, we're a little bit rushed now, right? So anything more than that, unless you are a brilliant writer, it's probably going to bore them and they're not going to get to the point that you need them to. But if you stay between 600 and 800 words, I don't know, like I said, I have trouble with English and I can bang out 600 words in probably 40, 45 minutes, something along those lines. And you should be pretty well served along those lines. I also mentioned interviewing, right? And I know you have another question and I apologize, but I just get excited about this stuff. So, interviewing your customers, there's a good example, this woman named Jill Conrath, and then another one as well named Trish Bertuzzi. They're both based out of Boston, and they're sales leaders, right? They're sales consultants. They were having trouble getting their consultancies started because they just didn't have the breadth of names and network that was coming into them. So Trish actually Trish actually started reaching out to various sales leaders in the community of Boston, and Boston's a large city, but started reaching out to VPs and directors, and she said, listen, I will take you to lunch on Friday, right? It's not going to be anything crazy, but I'll take you to a decent lunch. I just ask that I can record our conversation, and then will you give me the okay to transpose it? Yeah, and she ended up paying a college intern a 6-pack and a pizza every Friday to transpose that. That became literally hundreds of blog articles, hundreds upon hundreds of blog articles. So content creation scared the hell out of me when I first heard it, right? Because where's enough time? We're all working 36 hours a day anyways. But if you can do it the right way, if you can do it in a more strategic fashion, then it really is very accessible and you can do so.
Great, thank you very much, Gary.
Ryan, in a minute we'll take a few questions from the floor. Absolutely. Just one quick point that you made, but I wanted to quickly recap on. You mentioned the kind of concept of taking advantage of your staff. Mm-hmm. So any bit of content out there,
well,
just give them...
take advantage of that. No.
Well, it depends how far you want to push it. Asking them to visit it, to share it, who knows what their reach is, let alone what you, the content creator, is. Yeah. And I second that suggestion to all of the businesses in the room. Again, far too many businesses don't take advantage. Some businesses, don't let their staff on the likes of social media and Facebook and all the rest of it. And if we encourage them to get involved and to make sure they're aware of everything that you do, whether it's a blog, a tweet, a Facebook post, to get along, like it, share it, and help spread the message of the company, then sometimes at a very practical level, that will make the content work. Yeah, because if you don't, Facebook, a great example, Facebook reach, if nobody engages with it, it gets seen by nobody. Yeah. So the best way to kick that off is to give the staff a kick.
Exactly. I would challenge you a little bit on that, right, in a positive way. I don't think it's up to us to promote the company, right, because that's what I consider to be interruptive. That's because all you're doing is caring about you and what is your end game there. Instead, I would put it a little bit differently, maybe color it in the fashion of you need to promote your mission, you need to promote your values, you need to promote what it is, what problems do you solve in the community itself. I think that might be an easier way. And also, right, depending on your staff, depending on the age levels, whatever it might be, I deal and work with, I say deal like it was a bad thing, I didn't mean it that way. I work with a lot of younger individuals, right, the quote-unquote millennials. And they absolutely need to believe in the mission of the company itself. That's why HubSpot has been so successful from a workplace environment, from a culture environment, because we bleed orange. We bleed the absolute belief of inbound marketing and how it helps small businesses. So that's that. Yeah. You know, not to say you're wrong, but I just want to do it a little bit differently there.
Colin, should we take some from the floor?
Yes, if you've got a question for Ryan Ball from HubSpot, stick your hand up and Gary will come round with the microphone. Any questions for Ryan, or have we been so comprehensive that we've... Absolutely. This is your chance. This guy goes all around the world. If you need something, tell him what business you're in, what sector you're in. He'll give you a ton of ideas in 30 seconds. Any questions for Ryan? They're still trying to take it all in, Ryan. You're giving him too much. We've got one over here. We've got one from Guillermo in the corner there, Gary, and one from that table just behind Jim.
All right. I would like to ask you something. I will speak later about myself, but one of the things that I caught my attention was the fact that you were talking about personas, right? And the model that up to now everyone have use of personas have been a different role in a different setting. For example, the person in the office, the person in whatever situation, right? Putting a person in a situation so you could predict what will be the reaction, right? How do you work out with people like me? I am working when I'm not living, right? I don't know if the fact that right now there is no a boundary between when I'm working or when I am, so there is, I am three people at the same time, right? Yeah. Because I go pick up my daughter, and then from the school, then I put her, get a conference call, then I go work a little bit, then I go and take her to the ballet, then I come back. So how do you work with these changes that are happening right now in life where everyone is connected?
So I think that is one persona, is what I think it is, right? I mean, we are all connected at all times now. We are all working all the time. But like some of the personas that we just saw, one of which was Mary, right? Marketing Mary. The idea is, man, she has young kids and she's running all over the place, and she is just pissed off at the world because she works every Sunday night in Excel spreadsheets trying to figure out what she's going to say to her boss on Monday morning. Yeah. We know that persona, so we develop content around that individual, essentially saying, it doesn't have to be that hard. We want to give you your Sunday nights back. Here's some of the things that we would suggest. These are some of the ways in which you can become more efficient. These are some of the things that you might want to present. Here's some of the templates, so you don't have to be up until midnight on Wednesday doing this kind of stuff. So everybody's always interconnected, but that is part of the persona itself. I think that the challenge or the concern that I have is if you take the individual and try and segment yourself into various personas just as one person, we're making this far too complicated for ourselves. And the idea is to at least have a foot in the door or dip your toe to begin with, and then you can start to build upon those personas moving forward from there. That's my 2 cents. I'm far from an expert, but that's kind of the way that I approach it. We really believe in the whole keep it simple, because the more complex and sophisticated you get, more likely it is you're going to screw it up. That's just what it comes down to. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Guillermo, for the question. And one more.
Hello there. I'm Eric of ADA Professional Services.
Nice.
It's an accountancy and sort of tax professional sort of services as well. Cool. As well as you.
Don't apologise about that.
As well, fair enough. As well as US tax as well.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing.
I already have a tax man right now, but I appreciate.
I'm also a musician. Anyway. The accountancy side of things is generally rather dull, and trying to get your message out there to people to actually read it and understand it. How would you go by that?
Believe it or not, some of my most successful clients ever are CPAs back in the US, and they asked the exact same question, and I was like, all right, well, what are you solving for people? Essentially, like, what is it that keeps you going? What is it that's bringing value to the marketplace? Why do people work with you on a daily basis, a quarterly basis, right? Why is it that they're willing to give you a pretty fair amount of money for the expertise that you bring? And they're like, well, it's because I help them, save more money. I help them save for their children's education. I help them save for their second home or whatever it might be. So that's what you end up writing upon as a CPA or as an accountant, is the importance of financial responsibility, so to speak, and what are the opportunities or the potentials of doing so. If you're smart today, what could it mean for you tomorrow, right? In no way are you prognosticating, so to speak, or are you promising results, but it's essentially saying, yeah, I was speaking to such and such the other day. Use a confidential name, it doesn't matter, but and essentially saying these are some of the things that they shared with us, and by going through detailed plans, these are some of the opportunities we identified for them. Because, and please take no offense, but it can be a fairly, what's the word yeah, I wasn't going to say dull. I wasn't going to go that direction, but it's not the sexiest of professions, right? That's the way that I would put it. But the value that you provide is immense to society. Immense. And I think the moment you start to believe that, and the moment you're able to really share that with others, that's when you're going to see the content just start pouring out of you. So,
thank you very much, Ryan Ball from Hubspot. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ryan. Great to have you here today. And you know that this week we really have packed the programme full of the most sought after speakers in digital and social media. You can flick through the programme and you'll see who we had yesterday and on Tuesday. If you missed any of it or you just want to recap, you can have a look at our website, workingdigital.co.uk. You will see them all there. As well as Ryan coming in from the US via Dublin as well. Our next speaker in the programme, you'll see, has flown here specially from Social Media Week in London. In fact, he's still flying here specially from Social Media Week in London. He actually tweeted us earlier on to tell us that he was running a wee bit late. So we've rejigged the programme very slightly.
Colin, just the latest is that he has landed, he is in a taxi, and he will probably be here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. However,
excellent.
Rather than wait, he's a great example of working digital. He told me this on text message, on email, and on tweet. So he's doing all he can to keep us informed. He is en route, but we're going to jig the programme just a little bit.
Yeah, so Dan will be on a wee bit later on. But first of all, before that, for many people, certainly in the west of Scotland, IBM has just always been here. But this is a company that's really been on a remarkable journey over the last 10 or 20 years or so. They've radically adapted their culture and their attitude and the technology itself to enable them to stay on top. It's not just about using the digital tools, it's actually about using the tools and changing the way that you do business. And to tell us more about what's going on about IBM, here's Guillermo Amodeo.
Thank you. The first things I would like to say is that I don't have the habit to usually speak to businesses, right? I'm a techie, you know, and this is quite good, right? So I'm pretty happy about it. Okay, so the thing is that I'm going to speak here about when Gary asked me about speaking to you. He wanted me to speak about the transformation that IBM has done over the last maybe 15 years, right? Towards the changes that we have done from being a traditional business. I don't know if you have been aware of IBM presence in the area for a very long time. So how IBM has changed from a traditional business to actually a social business? What are the reasons why that happened? So the way I'm gonna do this is by your traditional way to speak in IBM. I'm gonna say an agenda. The very first thing, that strange word in start, I'll explain it in a minute, is about me. Who am I and why I'm speaking to you all this, right? Then I will talk about IBM. Probably you know IBM, others don't, and because we are sort of disappearing from the public eye, but because we are moving more towards the labs, and now thanks to the digital area, we are back. Then I'm gonna do a wee quiz, because Scottish people love quizzes, right? So I'm gonna have a wee who wants to be a millionaire, a wee question. Then I'm gonna explain why IBM had to evolve to a social business, and then the 3 steps we took to make that possible. Then I am going to explain how does apply to your business. And I have some bonus materials if we have time, because this is about fun, and this is something that Gary wanted me. This has to be a fun thing, because IBM usually is big. People have the idea of people with ties and white shirts and jackets, and that's not anymore. I'm wearing jeans, a shirt, and I don't think I'll ever wear a tie in business. Maybe a couple of times when I went to see some bank guys or something like that, but honestly, we don't, right? So let's start with me, right? Who am I? The reason why I'm saying that word in there is that anyone that have worked with Unix, I'm a techie, right? And that's the prompt. The dollar is the prompt in Unix, and who am I is actually a command that tells you who you are. You may not find interesting a command that you type and they say Guille, which is my name, right? But when you work in Unix, you have to take different personas, and that's why I ask that because depending on the task you're doing, you have to be someone at a certain point of time. Maybe you have to be root, you have to be somebody, because every single process works in a different persona. So you need it's very handy to have a command that will tell you who you are in a certain point of time, right? And that actually happens as well in life. As I say, I've been 11 years working from home, right? I am the future, right? But in the past, I was the future 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I used to work when I'm not living, and I'm still doing that. I do my school run, I do shopping, I work while I'm doing shopping. That's the fact. One day, I was having a conference call with my laptop in the bus station with my phone and my laptop, and I was sitting there, and a friend of mine came around and said, "Hey, how are you?" And I said, "I'm working." And he was looking at me like, "Yeah, right." Yes, I am. I was in a conference call with a guy in Japan who was actually almost asleep because it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon here. It was 9 o'clock in the States. So we had a conversation 10 years ago. That's the way we were, the actual workers. But now, that's everyone. That's not only us. That's everyone, right? And here is a bit of me. And I use this slide because when I go to talk to universities, I usually prefer images because images impact better than text, right? And as you can see, there's big computers in there and small computers. That's because that big computer, I used to write the software that keeps it up. You know, if there is a power cut, there is the heating, I wrote the software that got the chipsets of these things. I also wrote the software for the same thing for the other machine beside, which was the most successful machine we ever sold. It was built here in Scotland, in Greenock. Right, then I did some stuff for Coca-Cola to sell their 18 bottling plants in Africa, and I made possible $52 million contract with Daimler Chrysler by writing a piece of software that they needed. And beside that is the King of Spain, the current King of Spain. When he was the prince, I fixed his computer. And the person who is much more happy about it is my mom, because she got a letter from the royal household. Right? Then there is a mobile phone, because nowadays I write the software and design the software for mobile phones in IBM. One of the guys. And then there are 4 pieces of my life, because when I'm not doing that, I'm either on holidays with my family, that's my wife and my daughter. Then I play the flamenco guitar, which is underneath. I love it. You know, some Friday night when work is done, sit down, relax with the wife and a bottle of wine and play the guitar and sing. And then Machu Picchu is there because my wife is Peruvian. And I spend 1 month a year in Peru working, right? But I take my chance to go on holidays, right, when I'm not working. Because as I say before, I work when I'm not living, right? And that's the future of your customers, and it's the future of our customers, rather the present. And then right in the corner is me. There is a clone with several real clones that we went to do charity in Drummond Blair in Safari Park a few weeks back to entertain kids with Down syndrome and other problems. And that's me, all of that. So that's why I was asking why a persona, you know, how they cope with the different personas, because I'm a person which is quite difficult to classify, right? Now, IBM. How many of you know IBM or think they know IBM? Could you raise your hands? Okay. Does anyone in the room never heard about IBM? Please don't be afraid, because it's very curious when I used to go to universities and say, hello, I'm from IBM, and everyone, oh. Now half of the kids say, what's IBM? They don't know, and so that's why I have this slide. If you see in this slide in the corner, I don't know if the mouse can be seen in there, no. There is an evolution about the logo of IBM. IBM started in 1911 as the computing, recording, tabulation company. Tabulation. Sorry about if I need subtitles, just raise your hand and I translate. Okay? It's because IBM started as a tabulating company. What they were doing was to actually automate the production of books with maritime, that's going to be difficult, the tides, right? I was saying maritime ties, so sorry about my pronunciation, right? And then IBM automated the process for all these maritime companies, right? And the banks and all that stuff. Then it became, in 1924, it became IBM Business Machines, thanks to the very person who is besides the logos, whose name is Thomas Watson. He joined IBM in 1914, coming from National Cash Registers Company, as better known as NCR, who actually still works today, and they have cash machines, right? He came and changed the company. He changed the policy. He changed the way the people dress. If you see just underneath him, right, there is a guy perfectly dressed on a suit, immaculate shoes, but cycling in what looks like a tricycle to deliver bread. I don't know if in Scotland they used to use that, but in Spain they used to do these boxes to deliver bread. There, that guy was actually an IBM technician, ready to go anywhere he has to fix the computers. So they weren't around with that. So go and fix the computers wherever it was. Over that, you see a wafer. IBM is one of the biggest producers of semiconductors. Actually, we have now produced a chip which is very, very fast. It's made from a material called graphene, I think, which is actually 1 atom thin. It's 1 atom thin, and apparently can power your phone for a week. I'm dying to get my hands on one of them. Right, but I just seen it in the newspapers. Then you see the evolution of the logos. Coming back to the evolution of the logos, I just want to say this. You see that is the first logo on 1947 was changed to a hollow IBM. Then in 56 it was changed to a complete black IBM, and in 72 was bars. And the reason I have that is because I want to explain why do we have bars. Does anyone in the room know? Ink. The reason why they put bars, it was because the designer of the logo said, well, if we actually put white lines in the middle, it will be better reproduced when you pass through a fax, and you will also consume less ink. And by the amount of paperwork that our company have, that's going to be big saving. And that's the reason why IBM have 8 stripe bars. There used to be a restriction on how use the logo, but now that's gone. You can see green logos, yellow, sideways, model, anyway, other things that you can see there are OS2 Warp. I don't know if anyone in the room knows OS2. It was a big competitor of Windows, big mistake. AIX, which is our Unix version. Underneath, you can see black and red servers. They are AS400, which is one of the biggest unknowns from IBM, which are actually what we call the middleware, so middle computers, for small and medium businesses, right? In the middle, we have memory RAM, it's actually dynamic RAM, DRAM, which is actually invented by IBM, the hard drive, which is actually invented by IBM. Underneath, the ugliest computer in the world, a PC, but that started the business for everyone, from Windows for everyone, is that IBM PC with a green screen, and then a laptop, which is a ThinkPad, which is now Lenovo's, and which actually was very big thing here in Greenock. All the laptops in the world were done here in Greenock, in Mexico, and in Japan. And then there are, in the corners, two things that I want to talk about IBM, because that's the future of IBM. The first one, the one we have here in the right, for you, to your opposite for me, in your left, sorry. It's my right, your left. It's a black computer, and it's called Deep Blue. Does anybody know who Deep Blue was? Deep Blue was a computer that played chess in the 90s against Kasparov. Kasparov was the world 6 times chess champion, and Deep Blue was the very first computer that played against him and beat him. It took 4, I think it was 4 tries, but he finally beat him, right? And that was in the 90s. And in the far corner there is Watson. Does anybody know who Watson is? Watson is the computer, yeah. But the computer in the corner is Watson as well. Watson was a computer that competed in an American program called Jeopardy, and he actually won against 3 people. It's a computer that interacts with humans, and that's our bet to the future about how computers are going to interact with people, right? And that computer, Jeopardy, is a game where they give you an answer, and you have to figure out the question. There was 2 people against Watson, and one of them was the record holder of the game. The guy won everything, every time, most money, I think $1 million or something like that. And Watson won, right, that. Then, some facts about IBM. It's 103 years old. It has more than 430,000 employees. It operates in 170 countries. We have 12 research centers, 4 in Europe, none in Scotland. And we have over 3,000 product offerings. And then we have 99 billion annual revenue, right? And over 30,000 patents. But we don't wear suits anymore. You see the picture in there? That's our next generation of researchers in Zurich lab. You know, the guy with the shorts and the long hair is actually working with my friend Dieter and the future of the smart cities, which is smart meters for electricity and gas, which are going to be installed here in UK, 20 million of them in the next 10 years. Now, who wants to be a millionaire? There are 4 things. Which one of these is not an IBM patent? A coffee grinder, a DRAM memory, hard disk, or a cheese grater? Any volunteers who wants to get $1 million? Thank you. Sorry? No. That's an IBM patent. Sorry? Exactly. The hard disk is not. We invented the hard disk, but we sold the patent to Hitachi. So it was a tricky. Sorry about that. That was because if you see...
Who said hard disk? Who got it right? There we go.
Thank you, Gary. That was very nice. And the reason why I say that is because you see coffee grinder and cheese grater. IBM had 30,000 patents over them, close to 40,000 these days. And this includes graters and coffee grinder. And actually, the most funny of them one of our researchers was in a plane, and he actually invented a method to open a yogurt without exploding. And he patented. I don't know, you know, but it was, imagine, you know, going to a meeting, you know, with your suit and you open the yogurt in air. That's you, ready for the meeting. Anyway, so that's about IBM. Now let's talk about why you're here and why we had that huge company. We have to evolve into a social business. And it was a matter of what I said. Before, IBM was full of employees like me. It is full of employees like me. It was 10 years ago because we were connected. Some people may not remember, but I want to get back into something here. You see that logo in the corner? Does anybody recognize that logo? AS used to be IBM Global Network, which is now AT&T Global Network. We sold our global network business, so the biggest ISP in the world was IBM, and we sold it to AT&T. So in IBM, we were all connected since the 90s. I was able to work from home with a computer by a phone line, right? But the problem is that internet started to grow. Everyone started to have internet, and it changed everything, right? Because now all our customers were like our employees. They were like us. So we knew what is going to happen. Some of us, especially the researchers who are paid to play around, then, you know, internet allows everyone to be connected right now, everywhere, everywhere. Mobile computers, that's the word everywhere, right? You do. I mean, I was the other day sitting in a Kilmarnock castle with a friend, and he wanted a strange bottle of whiskey, right? And he couldn't find the shops, and just opened my phone and bought it, right? So now we need to change. We cannot go out to our customers in a suit and say, hello, good morning, do you want to buy another printer? That doesn't work anymore because the customer is not there. It may be home. It may be like I take some calls in my, in school picking up my daughter. Many of you have been in that situation. Computers are everywhere. What that means? With computers, I mean computers. I mean, you have, your phone is a computer, probably your washing machine, probably your fridge. We actually have a project called Internet of Things where we use the fridge as a router for the house network when your router goes down. Why important connected these days? Almost everyone is connected. Do you know anyone who is not connected, doesn't have a phone or doesn't have internet? You're wrong. Your granny has internet because he has grandchildren. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law have learned to use Skype because they live in Lima, in Peru, to talk to my daughter over Skype. My mom doesn't have internet connection, but my mom goes to my brothers and make my brother to open Skype to talk to my daughter. So your granny don't have internet herself, but use yours or somebody else. So really everyone, I mean, apart from the people that refuse totally, I don't want to use this, everyone uses it. And you have to adapt your business to that. And one of the most important ones, work is not a place anymore. As we were discussing, you work anywhere. You're here, some of you are working, some of you aren't, but you really are working everywhere, because I am. I'm sitting down and I design software, so I'm with an idea, I'm walking down the street to the shop, and then have the idea, and I go my phone, put it back in there, and if I have to tell to someone, I just send an email, hey, check out this, right? As it was said before, you have an argument with your wife in your sofa, and then Google it. Same as work. Have a discussion with an argument with my friend on the phone, all right, get it in there. So work is not a place. Work is a state now. You are working or you aren't working. But it doesn't matter where you are. And then that takes to the next point. The life and work boundaries are blurred. What happened with the sales guy that is all the time on the road, on the move? A truck driver that delivers, Amazon, which is actually one of the things that we were saying that the best thing that internet have ever done is that has boomed the postal service again, right? People say, oh, nobody send a letter anymore. Yeah, but all your shop comes through them, right? So that guy that delivers stuff, he needs to keep in touch and in contact with his wife, with his children, with his friends, Facebook. Those are the problems. We are going to talk about the solutions. The millennials. These are people who is born into the 2000s. And in 10 years, they're going to come out of the university, and they are very, very savvy. They talk to their friends on Google. You can see them sitting down, you know, in the sofa and talking to each other through the phone rather than talking. That's what kids do now. And they, in 10 years, they are going to run the world. They're going to be running the businesses, creating the new businesses, and actually imposing a new way to do business. So then we had to transform how we did it. The very first way we did it was by taking the vision. We say it's smart planet, instrumented, interconnected, and intelligent. What we say about that is because chips are everywhere. Now, you know, as I was saying, your phone, your fridge, your car. Soon, I was working in a project last year to set up, to patch the panels of the train where it's in the station. So, you know, the instruments that are in the train have firmware, right? And for example, the screen, the video, whatever. So while the train is at the station, the software is going to check if everything is all right, and it's going to update any updates it needs to do, or inform, be connected all the time. So if there is an accident or if there is a problem further down the line, they will stop the train and avoid life losses. 40 billion connected to 2020, that's a prediction. I don't think it's going to be that many if you think about phones. But if you think about instruments, how many trains are in the world, how many buses, how many cars, all of them are going to be connected, sending messages, you know. You tweet through your car. There are cars that tweet. I have a friend that works in IBM that have a house that tweets. Right? Yes, he's incredible. Right? I can talk to him about. I can talk about him 1 year. He actually have a house that tweets when the next ferry is, because he lives in the Isle of Wight. Right? And he needs to get the ferry correctly. So his house tweets what is the next ferry. And if he opens a window and the house have the actual heating on, he receives a tweet from his house. Search in internet, the house that tweet, right? Then the thing is, the next thing is how to predict the future, because this is the business, how you do it. Alan Kay said once, the best way to predict the future is invented. So we need to take part on these changes. We need to take part on this changing world. And to illustrate it, I'm going to show you 2 short videos. That's as before, 1998.
Wait until you hear this. This is so cool. Stop.
We met.
Cool. Cool. Cool is why my son needs new sneakers every month. Cool is why my daughter's hair is green and her boyfriend has a bolt through his nose. Cool costs me money. Cool. You were saying?
This online purchasing system could save us millions.
Millions? Cool.
You see, this is directed to the CEOs, right? That's what we used to do, okay? Now, that's what we do.
3.2 billion comments are posted online every single day. You live in a social world. But are you working in one? A smarter workforce is a social workforce, connecting employees to experts, insights to actions. It's a production line of knowledge that never stops building. How social is your business?
That's what I'm working on. I'm an IBMer. Let's build a smarter planet.
So that's where we were and where we wanted to go, right? So that was the idea. That was the first step, figuring out. The second step is to change the products. You know, here we have how our software looked in 2005 and then how it looks today. There is a word under Notes 9, which is now, the name is Lotus Notes. Lotus Notes is a tool to collaborate. Now it's called to connections, so now you're able to blog. It's a completely different. From here you could send email. That was a mail tool, Lotus Notes. And now Notes is a social tool. You can do, we have our own internal, well, not as every company, called Connections, which is part of Notes, which allows a company to have, let's say, a private Facebook internal. We use it a lot in IBM because it has been around for a very long time. So we have to change our products. We have to change the products to become more social because we have to change our products to become where we want it to be. So we have to predict the future. And as Alan Kay said, the best way to do that was to actually predict it. So we actually try to adapt our business to the changing situations, and the very first step was to change the products. The next step is to change the culture of a company. You know, as we say, the computer networks and restrictions do not apply anymore because everyone has his phone. You cannot say, no, you cannot use Amazon. Okay, you get your phone out, shop. Right? I don't need the company network. What we do with that? Then what we do with the employees become more socialites. Everyone is in Facebook. You know, people, as we say, the blur between life and work is, yeah, you can shop in any moment. I'm here, I need to shop. No, you cannot shop during working hours. What about holidays? Look what Richard Branson said not long ago. Holidays, how do you measure when someone is working if he's never in the office? If work is not a place? So why don't we use their presence on the social networks instead fighting it? Why we say, no, don't go to Facebook. No, go to Facebook and say, hey, I work in IBM. Do you want to know what is the next cool we're going to do? That would put us in the map. IBM has 430,000 employees. So imagine how many tweets IBM has about work. Actually, I used to have a personal Twitter and a blog, 2 personal blogs, right? Actually, in 2010, I stopped blogging because I didn't have any more time. But now I have an IBM Twitter account that I use more than my personal account to say things about IBM, to say things. And IBM has his own Facebook page. So why, rather than say, hey, no, don't shop. No. Look, shop and say what you're buying and say it in an IBM if it's related to work. So just be careful what you say. So we train our employees to make sure they don't disclose information about customers or everything, right? But rather than tell them don't do it, just encourage them to use as a way to expand the brand, especially in a huge company like us, right? Then it comes to mind one thing that I have in the bottom of my mail, which is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go with others. So let's go everyone together. Let's get the employees, the company, let's change the mindset so everyone knows where we are living, right? That comes to the very first question and the reason why you are here. How this apply to your business? Well, doesn't matter if you're big or small. Your business operates in a changing world. I'm sure you're aware of it. It changed. The situation changed like it changed in our case. From a guy in a bike with a suit, we changed to a guy that looks like me and goes around in a car and, you know, talk to other parents and talk to the school teacher about how things are better. Then don't be scared of change. Try to make the best of them. And adapt your business, you know. So rather than saying, okay, what are we going to do now? Imagine, for example, if you have a small shop and everyone, you know, is, let's say, a shop about making keys, right? Which you say, what am I going to do in the web with that if I just cut keys? Well, why you don't find cool color keys and get the children of your neighbors or your friends or your own children to tweet about how cool are the keys that you do in your business, and put a Twitter say, or I put a Twitter account that says, hey, your keys ready, or whatever, right? Just think about how the technology could work for you, right? And I'm sure Gary and the other guys that give courses about how to use this technology can give you loads of ideas. But probably about your businesses, you have the better idea because it's your business. You run it, you work in it, right? So just adapt your changes, adapt to your new circumstances. And again, don't fight your employees. Use social networks and internet. Exploit it. Take advantage of it. Because as I say, if we have 400,000 employees and any of those employees get into Twitter, say something about him, it's something cool, it's going to be retweet, and it's going to go fast, right? So don't fight that. And as the guys say, be cool. It doesn't cost you money, right? If you see, there is a picture in there of Goliath and David. And so it doesn't matter the size. What matters is really that you are able to change, that you don't scare, and that you are able to adapt. And if you have a problem about it, you have the professionals, all right, to talk to. Well, that's me, right? I have some bonus material in here, right? And the bonus material I have in here is just to show you how IBM have changed over the years. You cannot see it well probably because I thought I was expecting a huge screen, but bigger than this, so I make the videos. That in the corner over there is an actual web page for development. You see a rocket in it. Just think about this. IBM used to be in the website with guys with ties and corporates and CEOs. Now we have robots and rockets in there to say, oh, we are cool. We are with you. Just beside and underneath there are the splashes of screen. That's actually a joke. If you see that woman in there is holding her head, everyone banging keyboards, it's actually a joke that we received from a guy that changed the splash in our program to say that the program sucks. It's too very difficult to use it. But the guy just actually sent us a splash as a fun. It's fun. And the more funny of all is a video I'm going to put you. I love it because it's going to show you how the world has actually changed since 1998 when that video was done, and today. Think cloud and think this video.
This way. It's the crime of the century. What was stolen? This is it. This way.
What happened?
Everything happened. I called you as soon as I could.
Tell us what
I'm trying to get calm, but everything's gone. You want me to be calm? Is it possible that it's an inside job? I mean, we're inside, right?
Take it easy.
We've got to be pros, these guys.
Calm down, sir, and tell us what
I can't
happened.
breathe. I need my pills. This way.
The room's completely empty. What was stolen?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. Payroll, R&D, customer records.
Assets?
All of the assets.
How could they get everything?
How do I know? You're the cops.
I'd say, look, pal, we're the only friends you've got. How much money are we talking?
A lot.
Millions?
Millions.
Millions?
Millions.
All the assets were in this room?
Dad, the servers. They stole all our servers.
No, we moved everything onto that one. It's going to save us a bundle. I sent out an email.
IBM servers running Linux.
What's a server?
Good infrastructure. It can save you a bundle.
Okay, so that shows you that we wanted to consolidate everything, and now the cloud is spreading everything again. Thank you very much.
Guillermo, thank you very much. We'll try and bring you back up for some questions in a wee second, if that's okay. I just want to make a couple of quick points. As somebody who's grown up in the west of Scotland and has always lived among a volume of IBMers, my wife worked for IBM for 10 years. Her dad worked for IBM for way longer than 10 years. My best man still works for IBM. The company has massively evolved, absolutely massively evolved. And Paul, my best man, he doesn't ever go in anymore. He works in his gym jams from his sofa. Apologies, Paul, if you're watching on the live video feed for that one. But you did tell that story about me at the wedding, so I could be worse. Anyway, the point there is, I think if a giant like IBM can massively, radically change itself, you know, we all need to massively, radically change ourselves because the world is radically different. Thank you for illustrating that so wonderfully as you did. I thought that was a wonderful presentation. Guillermo, thank you very much. Got you. Right, we are pretty much nearly at the break time. I'm delighted to announce our speaker flying all the way from London Social Media Week has arrived in the room. Thank you for coming along. Guillermo, thank you for being... there we go. These are the lengths we go to at Working Digital for you. That was a private jet exclusively on East Ayrshire Council funds. I'm kidding, guys, don't worry. So it's nearly break time, and as we always have done, we encourage you to take advantage of the food, of the drink, of the networking. Talk to one another, speak to the sponsors, go up and see what great products and services they have for you, because they are kind of picked specifically for this conference. So go and speak to them. There's a lot of value in doing that. And one of the things I want to stress though, while we've heard about this overly connected world where we all have mobile phones and laptops and anything and everything, don't stand in the buffet queue with your head down on your mobile phone. You know, let's try, and maybe goes against the grain of what we're talking about, but let's put them down and actually talk to one another. And to illustrate this, I'm going to play you just a little short video. Fraser, if you could turn the volume on that back up, thank you. Which I hope, well, I got the right clicker, too many clickers, begins to help tell the story.
Social media is great. It connects you to the world and the people you love. You can chat with your family or share a meal with friends and watch cute little cats do unbelievable things.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box. But there are times when social media can get in the way of the real world. Remember that? It's the thing that happens when you run out of battery. That's why we've developed the Social Media Guard. It takes the social out of media and puts it back into your life. Let's see how it works. The Social Media Guard. Get yours now.
Guys, enjoy the buffet. Hopefully you don't need a guard, and we'll start again shortly. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final part of the final day of Working Digital 2014. I feel quite emotional saying that. I hope we're all going to keep in touch with each other, use the power of social and the power of digital to continue all the new relationships and all the positivity and energy and ideas that I can hear flying around the room, and they have been all week. This really is something very special. Later on this afternoon, Gary will give you some of the stats about the impact that we have all made through the various social media channels, but it really is something very impressive. During the break, you might have had a chance to look at the Twitter wall and some great comments and practical hints and tips from our first two speakers this afternoon. And such a big part of events like this is not just what's said from the front, but also how you all interact and engage with it using the Working Digital hashtag. We've got lots more to pack in this afternoon, and again, just an incredible calibre of guests that we're bringing you, and I'm absolutely so grateful to all our speakers for making the effort to be here today in Kilmarnock. They have travelled from the four corners of the globe to be here, and our next guest that literally is just off the plane from Social Media Week in London. We talk about useful tools. We heard so much about Hubspot earlier on. Another really useful tool is Hootsuite, and I know from a straw poll that we did earlier on this week, it's a tool that many of you are familiar with. Some of you might not be. And over the next 40 minutes or so, those of you who are using it, you're going to get lots of ideas to take it to the next level and help your business even more. And those of you who maybe haven't experienced it will get everything you need to get started. I hope you'll give a really warm Working Digital welcome to Dan Spicer from Hootsuite.
Thank you, thank you. I made it, thanks. And thanks to Gary and the team and the speakers for being so flexible with myself and my issues with my flight. So thank you very much. As Gary and the team mentioned, I'm Dan, Head of Community for Hootsuite. Just by a straw poll of hands, who here has heard of or uses Hootsuite? If I can just get it, fantastic. So about 95% of the room. So I won't do too much on the Hootsuite intro, but just for those of you who haven't heard of Hootsuite, we're now actually known as the world's most widely used social relationship platform. So effectively, we're a dashboard that allows you to integrate all of your social platforms into one web-friendly, web-based and mobile dashboard. Not just social media platforms, we call ourselves the social relationship platform. We have Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and LinkedIn integrations, and we're partners with those four platforms. But we also have about 110 integrations now, I think, the likes of Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, social CRM, so Zendesk, Salesforce, Gmail, and a whole host of analytics apps. So you may or may not be using the app directory, but we now have such a broad spectrum of apps and integrations in the platform. We call ourselves a social relationship platform. Just quickly again on Hootsuite, we have a free tool, which probably many of you use. We have a professional tool, really aimed at small to medium-sized businesses, and we also have an enterprise tool as well. And we work with about 75% now of the Fortune 1000 enterprise companies. So hopefully from working with those brands, and myself within the role gets to work with those brands, I've got some insights to share with you today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about social media. Obviously we're fresh off of Social Media Week, and I've been talking a lot about social this week. I'm going to have a little bit of an intro around the social landscape. So take us back just 2 or 3 years, look at where we were 2 or 3 years ago, and how we've got to where we are today, and how quickly we've evolved within the social media landscape. And then I'm going to end on 3 hopefully tangible tips that you can take away today and implement into your social strategy to hopefully improve your social strategy, or maybe for some of you develop a social strategy depending on what stage you're in. So just to kick us off, we all know the power of social media. We know it impacts our daily lives and is changing the world. It's used to overthrow governments, like the Egyptian uprising. The Egyptians used Facebook and Twitter to coordinate their protests, effectively. The government actually shut down Facebook and Twitter, and some social savvy people for 72 hours used Hootsuite to manage their Facebook pages. And that was a very interesting period for us. Social media also is used to get governments elected, like the highly coveted Obama social media campaign. It's used and connects us when reaching out seems impossible. And it's a lifeline when disasters like the Japanese tsunami strike. But it's also great even when small disasters strike, like lights go out in the stadium. You may have seen Oreo's tweet, you can still dunk in the dark, when the stadium lights at the Super Bowl shut off for 45 minutes. Within 25 minutes of that tweet going out, they had 35,000 retweets. Within an hour and a half, it was seen by 2.5 million people. So we see the power of social media now from a micro content perspective is very, very powerful for big brands as well as small brands. So how does it affect us? Well, the risk of not embracing social media and social technologies is very, very high. A study from Gartner actually predicted that by 2017, a quarter of businesses will lose their market positioning, will lose their market dominance because of social business incompetence. Therefore, the issue now is no longer whether you should be a social organisation, but how quick you can get there. The same report also showed that 1 in 5 businesses will cede their market dominance to a company founded after 2000. So you see, that's a huge risk for a lot of companies, but an even bigger opportunity for many of us in the room today with new companies. And why is that? Brian Solis, you may have heard of Brian Solis, a great social thought leader, released in his 2013 State of Social Business Evolution report, it's a bit of a mouthful, that part of the reason is that half of executives nowadays are not engaged in social media within an organisation. Half of businesses just don't have social buy-in for social media. So here's a quick example of a CEO who's engaged in social media. So, quick example, this is Jay Rooney. He's just found out that T-Mobile doesn't charge for extra overseas data. What the hell is he still doing with AT&T? Obviously T-Mobile has obviously listened very well on social media and has picked up on this. It's called T-Mobile, the Un-carrier, come across. The gloves start coming out. Here's AT&T. Resist the urge, Jay. We've heard it's dark and scary and no one can ever hear you on the T-Mobile side. No one. Here he comes. So Jay Rooney's back in. Obviously everyone likes a freebie. He could be persuaded by a discount on his data plan. Who doesn't like a freebie? Here comes T-Mobile. Gloves are really off. Did your kindergarten panel write that for you? AT&T. Hashtag it's not complicated. AT&T, no gloves out here, Jay. It's too close to the holidays to be so disgruntled. But the uppercut? John Lager, T-Mobile's CEO, bet AT&T CEO isn't going to join the conversation. Come and join the wireless revolution. Jay Rooney, you definitely caught my attention, good sir. Going to a T-Mobile store to inquire tomorrow. Now, obviously, every single CEO can't be on social media answering every single query and question, especially from a T-Mobile and AT&T's volume perspective. But the point here is you can see the immediate impact social media has. You can see how quickly it has an impact when you're joining that conversation. And those conversations are happening with or without you on social media. Jay Rooney is tweeting that. Whether he can tag T-Mobile or whether he can tag AT&T, he's having those conversations with his peers and his family. Social media is now democratized across the business. And everyone now from the marketing executive through to the VP through to the CEO now has to be on social in some shape or form. So what's next? Well, MIT's Sloan Management Review, I think last year or in 2013, released a statement saying, as a business solution, social has evolved, moving well beyond the marketing department to address business objectives across the organization. The point being moved well beyond the marketing department. No longer is social media just for the young and the restless. It's no longer just for the millennials or the generation X and Y as they call them. Social media distinctly addresses business issues and can address those. To put that into perception, growth for the title social media manager last year actually decreased by 50%. So there were 50% less jobs on the market for a social media manager. The year before that, it tripled. The year before that, quadrupled. But last year, jobs with social media in the job description increased by 13 times on recruitment site Indeed. So 13 times as many jobs had social media as a core discipline within the job description. Everyone from the executive, like I mentioned, through to customer service, through to sales, through to VPs and MDs are now responsible for social media. And as I mentioned, social media is now democratized across the organization because of that. So if we just take a little bit, if we go back a couple of years, 2012, just a couple of years ago, what we're calling the year of the land grab, as aptly named. So brands and businesses just trying to get as many fans, as many followers as possible. Even some businesses buying fake fans to unnaturally inflate how good they were at social, effectively. 2013, just last year, what we're calling the year of engagement. So many businesses and brands and people just trying to get as many likes, shares, comments, retweets, favorites. A lot of brands hiring agencies. So I'm actually from an agency. I used to work 4 years previous to Hootsuite as head of social for an agency, and a lot of brands coming to us and they were saying, what's our engagement rate? Can you work out the engagement rate of our content? How many people have we got engaging with us? So 2013, the year of engagement. So now as we move to 2014/2015, what we're calling the year of advocacy. So businesses and brands targeting niche communities and smaller audiences around a common interest and providing them with content that is valuable to them. So content that inspires, content that educates, content that entertains in such a way. Social media communities has evolved so fast that it's stagnating now, and it's a 24/7 content machine. And brands and businesses that can understand how to be more cost effective and more impactful, reaching current and new customers in a more sustainable way will succeed on social. And advocacy, ambassadorship and influencer marketing now are some of the key strategic opportunities for 2014 and 15. So people really need to stop worrying about the technology. The technology has always been there, and I can do a whole session on social media going back 30, 40 years and being based around communities and people just having conversations. Technology has always been there around social, but people need to stop worrying about the technology itself and start worrying about how to get trust from your audiences. So I'm going to go into 3 tips from myself, and my number 1 tip to kick off is respecting the platform. As I mentioned, it's a noisy world out there, and people have to tell stories and produce content differently to different people on different platforms, both from a B2B and a B2C perspective. 70% of the B2B's buyer's journey is now done digitally. So no longer is the conversation between B2B and B2C. Brian Kramer, social business strategist over in Silicon Valley, actually came out with a great quote which sticks with me, saying, there's no longer B2B or B2C, it's H to H, human to human. People just want to have conversations. Doesn't matter who you're targeting, what vertical, what business segment, you're talking to another person. And that's even more so as we look at the world of social media automation and content automation. People want to be talking to another person on the end of that platform. And the world of marketing has changed, and how people consume information has changed. What they consume, how they consume it, is now bite-sized, it's on the move, and there's various platforms to do that. There was a recent study released to show there was actually over 2,000 social networks out there at the moment that you can take part in. Whether that's the social networks we've all heard of, whether that's wikis, Q&A sites like Quora, sites like Reddit, etc. It's a very, very noisy world, and captive audiences are now dead, and interruption advertising is annoying. We know that, and we're now tuning out of those ads and those social ads. So now you really have to, going back to my point, respect the platform that you're on, and as granddads say everywhere, fish where the fish are biting. Know where your audience is and go there. It's much better to do one platform very well than 5 terribly. And there's a lot of platforms you can be on. Some of the top social networks in Europe, Facebook, of course, which you've all heard of, 280 million active users. Actually, 85% of them now are mobile active users, so 85% logging on. The average Facebook user checks Facebook 13 times a day. So people are on Facebook a lot. And there was a stat released, I think, last year to say the average 25 to 45-year-old who uses Facebook checks Facebook before he gets out of bed in the morning, he or she gets out of bed in the morning. I'm sorry I have to put my hands up. I do. My alarm goes off in the morning. My iPhone is on my bedside table. I roll over, pick it up to turn the alarm off, and my Facebook and Twitter notifications are on the phone, on the screen there. So I'm laying in bed checking my Facebook and Twitter notifications. There's no other marketing channel that allows you to interrupt in people's daily lives like social media does, 24/7. Twitter, as we go up, 65 million active users, second most active. Google Plus, 55 million active users. See, if you have a Gmail account, a YouTube account or anything, you have a Google Plus account, effectively. So I can't validate all of those stats. And then LinkedIn, 45 million. And each of these, as I go back to my original point, by respecting the platform, each of these platforms has a nuance. Facebook is very good for community building, for growing a community. Like, say, people log on 13 times a day. So if you're posting a content and people like your page and are looking at your content, they're more likely going to be able to see it. Twitter, great for real-time marketing, bite-sized information. Great for event marketing like today, like our nice Twitter walls on the wall here. You don't see Facebook walls because Twitter walls are great for real-time event marketing, bite-sized content, 140 characters. Google Plus has strong SEO and SEM links, so search engine optimization and search engine marketing links. Google is now putting more, I wouldn't say putting more weight, but is looking more at the social graph around people's sharing habits and how they share. And of course, Google owning and monopolizing the search engine market can also look favorably upon Google Plus. So if you have content, the same way you have content being pushed out with links and backlinks back to your site, that has SEO and SEM value. So great for that if you have a strong SEO strategy. LinkedIn, always known perfect for B2B. It's obviously great for networking, relationship building, but there's a really strong groups and subgroups feature within those. I was actually speaking to a hairdresser a few weeks back, and I was asking them what platforms they use to get an indication of how well they know their audiences. And they said, actually, one of our most successful platforms is LinkedIn. I took a second, there's LinkedIn, and this is this group of hair salons in London. Okay, talk me through that a little bit more. And what they found out is that every council has a business forum group on LinkedIn. So all of the local businesses around each of the hair salons were in these LinkedIn groups. And they were talking about some of the business issues, taxes, local, etc., and they joined being part of one of the local businesses and actually offered everyone within the forum, 280 local businesses, a discount for themselves and all of their customers if they were to offer this discount through those. And they said within the next 6 weeks they saw a huge spike in footfall through the door because they'd posted this offer in a LinkedIn group. So it goes back down to understanding where your audience is and respecting the platforms. And each of these has a nuance. So when I speak to clients, I talk about the content life cycle, which is a term I think I've made up. But effectively it's Facebook, for instance, take Facebook. When you log in on Facebook, Facebook has an algorithm, used to be called EdgeRank. It's not called EdgeRank anymore, but it has an algorithm which basically tries to work out content that's most valuable to you as a user. So if you're interacting, say you take Hootsuite's Facebook page, for instance, if you've come to our Facebook page within the last 4 weeks and you liked a bit of content, what you'll see is for the next 4 weeks, you'll see more and more of our content. Because Facebook's seen that interaction and said, okay, this user likes some Hootsuite content, so let's show them more and more content. If you don't like or engage with any of our content in the next 4 weeks, you'll actually start to see less and less of our content to the point where if you don't engage at all, you won't see any of our content even though you like our page in your personal news feed, that is. So Facebook is continue trying to work out what content you like based on a number of factors. And the most weighting is per engagement. So if you engage with a page, you'll see more of that content. Because of that, when you log into Facebook, that Facebook will show you that content. So I could post something 2 days ago, say, and when you log in next, it will show you my content. So I always say it's not a science, but we always run off the 2 to 3 day life cycle. So from the moment we post a post, we have about 2 to 3 day window opportunity that our audience might be able to see that, because they might log in a day on 24 hours or 48 hours and see that. Twitter, on the other hand, is everything. So if you're following 1,000 people, you will see 1,000 people's worth of content on Twitter. It's a very, very noisy world out there. So Twitter doesn't try and work out what best to show you. It just shows you everything. So obviously, we always say that actually the life cycle of a tweet is about 2 to 3 hours. So if your follower hasn't seen your tweet within 2 to 3 hours, it's gone into the ether. So obviously that means if you look at how much you post content, you could probably post a post a day, post every 2 to 3 days, and have a good opportunity on Facebook for engagement. Whereas Twitter, a post every 2 to 3 hours will drive a good opportunity for engagement. So you can see the nuances already within these platforms and how you use them. So actually no longer can you take a bit of content and post it to every single platform and expect it to work. You now got to understand the nuances behind those, the timings, who's going to consume the content, and how people are consuming the content, bite-sized and on the move. People are checking their phones on the way to work, on the bus, not when they're sat at the desk at work. So when you think about timings, think about the psychology behind why people are using the platforms, and respect the nuances behind those, and start to then create content based on those platforms. And like I say, if you're not on social media or you're using social media, it's much better to do one very well, and Facebook and Twitter are clearly a good start, than it is to try and do 4 or 5 and post content multiply across all of them and expect them to work very well. So as I talk about creating communities, within Hootsuite I talked about targeting niche communities and offering content of value to them. And there are already communities out there. You don't need to create your own social audience. So on the left-hand side, there might be broader interests like social media, marketing, technology, wearable tech. You can search Google and find any number of Facebook groups, Twitter groups, LinkedIn groups with this. And even actually for your businesses on a niche market, photography, cheese, Aston Martin, Hoovers. I selected these because I was looking online for some groups to use an example last week, sorry, and yes, there is a group about Hoovers. There's a group on Google+, which is a private group, I can't even get access to it, about Hoovers on Google+. I have no idea what conversations they're having. It's probably a really great strategy from Dyson on their product. There are other Hoovers available, but Dyson, product testing, product feedback group. But there are groups out there. Whatever your product, whatever your service, there are groups already out there, and you can target these. Offer content that's valuable to those. Content, as I mentioned, from a value perspective that inspires, educates, or entertains them in some way. And this is how I do it with Hootsuite. So if you use Hootsuite, you'll be familiar with this dashboard. This is my dashboard. Effectively, if you don't, you have multiple tabs at the top there and then multiple streams, and you can put anything you want in these streams. So this is effectively my Twitter stream. And what I've done is I've created Twitter lists with my community. So you might not be able to see, but on the second to right there, the list is called Hootsuite Ambassadors. So we have an ambassador program. It's a voluntary program at Hootsuite where we invite super Hootsuite users or brand advocates to join a program where we'll give them content and vice versa, and we'll support them with events, etc. I have all of them in the group. In a Twitter list. The next one is digital people. So these are influencers and digital people within the industry that I met at conferences. Hopefully I'll add some of you to that list after today. And then on the left-hand side, my mentions, but then on the far right-hand side, community managers, that says. So I have a list for all the community managers. So I've broken down these communities, and I will talk to each of those differently. So I know actually on the right-hand side, anyone on the far right, I need to talk about community management and the topics around community management, best practice. I'll share good content that I see in the community management industry to those people in that list. But Hootsuite ambassadors might want to know about behind the scenes Hootsuite, blog content, new product releases, beta testing opportunities. So I'll give them that content. So you can see I can now target those niche groups of people and have conversations that are relevant to them. No more am I broadcasting content to multiple channels at the same time, just hoping that someone's going to listen. Now I can have one-to-one engagement with these communities, make that relationship more relevant and nurture that relationship. And for a business, that allows you to continue to nurture your customers and offer them content that's relevant to them. And some businesses speak to me about sales. There's no sales ROI. We can't use social media to drive sales. So I thought I'd actually just show a picture of the sales funnel, the typical sales funnel, awareness through to advocacy. And let's use cars as an example. High-end, difficult to gain loyalty in the car industry, obviously people flicking. But when you get loyalty, obviously you retain loyalty. Historically, people self-serve for a lot of information. They're already educated about the cars they want to buy, sometimes more knowledgeable than salespeople. Sometimes, sorry if there's any car salespeople in the room. And they engage with neutral third parties to get information. But if we take that industry, awareness, I'm thinking about getting a new car. Consideration, I'm thinking about getting an electric car. Save the environment, economical. What electric cars are there out there? Who has an electric car? What kind of mileage can I get? Preference. I think I'll get a Tesla. Teslas look pretty good. I think I look pretty good in a Tesla. Purchase. I've bought a Tesla. Loyalty. I love my Tesla. Advocacy. You should all buy a Tesla. You can see that conversation happening in every stage of the funnel on social media. Whether that's awareness, considering, searching, asking friends, whether that's preference, seeing who's conversing and talking on social about Teslas and seeing what the sentiment is out there, all the way through to purchase, loyalty and advocacy. I'm going to have those conversations. I bought a Tesla, look at me. There goes on my photo albums with me sat in my car on my Facebook feed. All of that happens on social media. So no longer are we talking about the sales funnel, customer service, social marketing. It's integrated within the organization at every phase. And social media can really affect that. Tip 2, storytelling. How am I doing for time? Good. Tip 2, storytelling. So you've probably heard storytelling quite a lot. People tell stories. You need to tell stories to engage your consumers. But we've lived through kind of 70 years of heavy work, TV, presentations, white papers, research documents, and now we live in the era of breaking news, so 140 characters, real time, a completely different skill set, and we're seeing that in the media, and we're seeing that with the evolution of publishing brands. Not that the heavy work, not that presentations, research papers is dead, they're completely fine, it's just not the only thing now. And 99% of people look at social as distribution. They look at it as using content to drive towards a destination. And as I mentioned, we need to start respecting the platforms, and we need to understand the psychology behind those. But actually now it's about adding value to those conversations. And I don't know if anyone recognizes this guy here, Commander Chris Hadfield, a very, very talented guy. He's a painter, he's a skateboarder, he's a musician, and he drives spaceships for a living, which is pretty cool. He shot to fame last year with his rendition of Ground Control to Major Tom floating in space. Uploaded it to YouTube from the International Space Station, did 9 months up there. If you can check YouTube and watch the video, it's great. But we were fortunate enough at Hootsuite to have him at the office for a fireside chat. And someone in the crowd asked him, so what do you think the best social media campaign or the best social media activation has been ever, in your opinion? And he said, he took a little while, and he said, oh, the moon landing. There's a few of us looking around at each other, trying to work out social media platforms that were out there, that were going back, online forums, Wikipedias, what was there, like how were people having that conversation? And what he said is you don't really think about that being social media, but they took what Neil, Mike and Buzz did, raw live commentary, like a brand new human experience, and with the best technology they had at the time, they brought it to real time for everyone, to have that conversation, to have the same conversation in real time. And I have to agree, and we wonder if social media and digital communication is this whole new scary thing to tackle, but it's just a product of our innate human desires to have conversations with people. You might have heard the term social media is just word of mouth on steroids. effectively. Things haven't changed, only the technology has changed, and the technology is making it easier to have those conversations now. So let's take advantage of the technology, be it Facebook, be it an online forum, and connect with one another on that human level and have conversations on social. And you may have heard this quote, traditional marketing talks at people, content marketing talks with them. And that's something that, a quote that Commander Chris actually said during those, and actually really resonates around those. And sometimes content marketing is a little bit, I see as a little bit of a dirty word. I don't like to use it too often. But actually, it is about understanding, I think, who was it? I think will.i.am, of all people, invented a new word the other day. He was talking about marketing and community, and he came out with communiting. And basically that's about, like I mentioned, understanding the needs and desires of your audience, and then not only creating content to market to them, but creating content to add value and to build a relationship with them effectively. So as from a commuting perspective, from a content marketing perspective, we're just there to build relationships. But also from a storytelling perspective, we have many, many ways to tell stories. Here's a couple of examples. I don't know if you know, if anyone's seen this guy. Tom Dixon, I believe his name is, don't quote me on that. He owns Blendtec. It's a blending company, founded in 1975, I think. And then in really typical blending company, wasn't too exciting around some of the product marketing, etc. And in 2000, he released a YouTube channel, opened up a YouTube channel, and shot to fame. And this is why.
Will it blend? That is the question. Love my new iPhone. It does everything. But will it blend? That is the question. Let's find out. I think I'm going to push the smoothie button. I smoke. Don't breathe this. Now, you fans on YouTube have asked me to blend an iPhone, so I did it. But I have another. I think I'm going to put this on eBay.
Who doesn't love that, right? I like the slow motion bit. No, as he sees his iPhone going around in the blender. And obviously that video is very low budget. It looked like it was filmed on an iPhone, effectively, and uploaded to YouTube. He has a whole series of them. I think that one's on 270 million views. I did have a slide here of some stats, which I just noticed isn't in my presentation for some reason. But effectively what it was saying that he released a report 2 months after that video, sales increased by 500% of that blender. And what you'll notice is that in the video, Dixon doesn't say a single word about the blender. No model number, no features, no benefits, no price, no ordering information. You don't even know how to go about buying it. He just went on his delightful shtick. We watch, we laugh, and then we go away thinking, wow, that was one hell of a blender. And we don't forget. So in 6 months' time, when we need a blender, and we're looking to create some fantastic juices, we think Blendtec. And we'll go to his YouTube channel, and there's plenty more that he blends. Have a watch. It's hours of procrastination watching his videos. Storytelling at its finest. Nothing about the product, nothing about the product or the service. A much often used example as well, Red Bull. See, they're used a lot because of their transition from a drinks company now to a media brand. They're a heavy-hitting media brand. They actually now license their content to other brands to use, their sporting content. As you probably know, you've probably seen this Felix Baumgartner, I think his name is, the world's highest ever skydive, crazy guy, jumped out of a balloon in space. I don't know if anyone saw it. It was a twitchy moment when he came down, so I don't know what they would have. I hope their crisis communications plan was up to speed on that one. But Red Bull do a very good job of being the show, not the commercial. And that's the quote of theirs, is be the show, not the commercial. Actually, 3 or 4 years ago, they came out with a quote, and they love their quote, saying, 75% of people go to Facebooks to waste time, so let's give them some cool shit to do when they get there. And effectively, that's what they've been doing ever since. Obviously, they are splashed across every sporting brand globally, and they're creating media content. And they're driving conversations. They're providing high-quality entertainment and value, but never a sales pitch. Go to their Facebook page and try to find a Red Bull tin. You will struggle. I've gone through and looked back through years of content and cannot find a Red Bull tin unless you go right back to the start. And they're very agile and responsive, and that's key when being the show, not the commercial, is to be agile and responsive to pop culture trends, to piggyback real-time content marketing, to piggyback all of the sporting events, like Oreo during the Super Bowl, like Red Bull do very, very well. And then a final example, Game of Thrones fans. So I'll take on storytelling. Are there any Game of Thrones fans in the room? And show of hands. About 20–30% of you should hopefully recognise that ad then. That was a take on the season 4 ad. So we replicated the season 4 ad, piggybacked to the launch of Game of Thrones, and created that ad. I think we're bordering on about 1 million views now, hopefully. And that's our tell on, and that's all built in-house as well. So obviously a little bit more high production value than Blendtec. But it was built in-house, and obviously fantastic that we've got the opportunity to do that, and really helps, hopefully, add to that storytelling piece. And then my final tip, just see I'm short on time, empowering your team. So this is something I've been speaking to a lot of clients recently, both small businesses and larger brands, around understanding the power of empowering your team, if that makes sense. Now let me use an example to explain that. I'm going to take average Fortune 500 company, because it shows scale a little bit more, but the average Fortune 500 company has about 8 people who look after their social media within the organization. The same company has on average 10 Facebook pages, 10 Twitter profiles, with 152,000 likes in total and 14,000 followers, Twitter followers. If they were to take a piece of content and post it out to their social media profiles, or these social media profiles, they would effectively potentially reach 1.7 million people. Obviously significant reach within those. Now if we take the same organization, exactly the same team, but take their employees. An average Fortune 5,000 company has 160,000 employees, but actually the more important part is, on average now, people within Facebook have about 111 friends and 25 Twitter followers on average. Now, if we empower the team to post the same post to their social media profiles, potential reach is 22.2 million. So times 10-fold by empowering the team to create and produce content, or produce the content, distribute the content that you've produced. Now, this scales up and down. So it scales from the small business that has 10 employees, 200 Facebook fans, 10 employees posting out gives you 1,000, and sometimes you say a much more engaged network of peers. Peers that are on their Facebook group, peers that are on their Twitter profiles, who will listen, engage with the content that they're sharing. It scales up to the non-profit that has 100 volunteers and advocates who are volunteering for their brand, creating, producing content. 100 volunteers versus 1,000 Facebook fans that they might have. And this is using the Facebook dashboard, the Hootsuite dashboard, how I do this within Hootsuite as a team. So I manage 5 community managers across EMEA, Europe, and Middle East and Africa. And every Monday, I create content for all of our social media channels, and I will add it to the dashboard as drafts. The team can actually then go into their personal handles and have a look every Monday at all the content ready to go for their profiles. They can select it, they can edit it if they want to, but it's there for them. I've made it easy for the team to distribute our content, and it should never be compulsory, of course. Your employees and your volunteers and advocates, it should always be a voluntary decision to post content, but make it easy for them. Empower your team to distribute the content, raise awareness, and share with their peers, friends, families. And finally, to do so, ensure you've got the framework in place. So we already talked about platforms. We talked about understanding which platforms you want to be on, choosing one, doing one well, doing 2 well rather than 5, 10. Best practice, have a think about the guidelines. If you are empowering your team to be on social, simple guidelines are a must. This is what you should say, this is what you shouldn't say. Don't say this about the brand. You do need the guidelines there. If anything, it allows you to enforce moderation if need be. It allows you to delete, etc. And you should also have guidelines for your social media channels. Infrastructure, have a think about the back end. So this is where social relationship platforms like Hootsuite come into play, allowing you to manage teams. So if you're on the free tool, you'll have an individual social media profile, but if you're on the pro and the professional tool, you can then set up teams. So you can have multiple people within your company on the same dashboard. You can then assign tweets or Facebook posts to them from the dashboard and start to manage within that dashboard and keep your profile secure. No longer are you sharing Twitter passwords or Facebook passwords. No longer is an employee moving on and keeping that password. The amount of conversations I've had with brands where they're like, can you get our profiles back? No. You need to be able to think about security as well, and a platform will support that. And then success metrics. So when we talk about social strategy and developing a social strategy, always think about the end goal. What are you trying to achieve as a business, and how can social media align with those business goals? If it is sales, how can social media support within that funnel? Which platforms do we need to go on? If it is awareness and engagement, if you're promoting an event, what do I need to do, and work backwards from there so you know that it's working? If not, as you've probably all heard, fail fast, iterate, test, learn, evolve. Create new content, test it. Do more of what works, do less of what doesn't. You control content with a Twitter lifecycle, 2 to 3 hours. You can post as much as you want, and at the end of the month, see what works, do more of that, scrap the rest. Make sure you're measuring that content and doing more of that. And then finally, to end off, just a bit about Hootsuite. If you don't know, we have Hootsuite University, which is an open learning platform. It has about 150 lecture modules. You can go on, self-serve, watch videos, not only how to use Hootsuite, but how to develop a social media strategy, how to prove ROI, how to sell it to the C-suite, you name it, it's in there. It is a paid platform. If you want access to Hootsuite Pro or Hootsuite University afterwards, tweet me. I can get you on there. I'll give you a coupon code. You can trial it for a month, 2 months. We also have the Advanced Social Media Strategy Certificate. So we've partnered with Newhouse University to create an accredited social media strategy certificate, ASMS, Advanced Social Media Strategy Certificate. It's a mouthful. We also have Hootsuite Enterprise. I've mentioned the free and pro tool, but you can scale up to Enterprise if you're looking to, if anyone in the room is looking to onboard 100, 200. In some examples of clients we work with, 19,000 people into the dashboard and create that team, that social organization, that social business. We've also, you may have heard earlier in the year, acquired a company called Uberview, which is an analytics platform. So I talked about success metrics. We have Hootsuite Analytics within the dashboard. We also have Uberview via Hootsuite Analytics, which then allows you to go out and listen to the social sphere. What conversations are being had out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Pinterest, etc. Bring that back and give me some insight. That's with Enterprise. So Uberview is actually on the Enterprise. At the moment, we don't have a free and pro platform. And then finally, Hootsuite Campaigns. We have now recently released a platform called Hootsuite Campaigns, which allows you to develop social apps, Facebook apps, microsites, sweepstake competitions, that kind of thing, and integrate that within the dashboard as well, and manage social campaigns out of the dashboard. So that's my final piece on Hootsuite. That was my 2 minutes on that, and I believe I'm just about on time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Dan Spicer from Hootsuite, ladies and gentlemen. And we will get some questions for you, Dan, in just a moment. But if you do nothing else as a result of these last 3 days, really, when you go home this evening, take Dan up on his offer of connecting with him on Twitter, and take him up on his offer of a voucher code to try out some of the advanced features of Hootsuite. We meet businesses every single day who get serious value out of Hootsuite. It can take you from that feeling of knocking your head against a brick wall with social media. You start using Hootsuite the right way, and the lights go on, you get it, and it can make an immediate, dramatic difference to your business. Some great points in there, Dan, about the life cycle of a Facebook post, 2 to 3 days, maybe 2 to 3 hours on Twitter. People ask us all the time, you know, how often should I post? So some great stuff in that presentation. And I love the quote about, you know, be the show, not the commercial. Thank you very much. I think Gary's got some questions.
No, I'm just going to open it up to the floor. We're going to take a couple of questions. I'm aware of the time. So a couple of quick, I know there'll probably be quite a lot, but hands up if I see it first. We'll go straight to you. Wow.
Don't be shy.
Surely not.
It's always the first one.
The volume of tweets, I'm surprised there's no questions given the tweeting that was happening. Anyone at all?
If not, feel
free. Oh, one over here. Okay, thank you.
Tell us more about advertising on Twitter.
Advertising on Twitter. Yeah, so actually Twitter ads has recently opened that up, as you may or may not know, to the public now. So historically it was specific brands, but now you can effectively, there's a number of ads that you can set up, but the most, I'd say the most used are promoted tweets and promoted trends. Promoted trends, if you're a small to medium business, gets a little bit expensive, but promoted tweets, however, effectively allows you to target people and push your tweet in front of more people, a bigger audience. And there's many different targeting techniques you can use on Twitter ads. So you can target by interests, you can target by information in people's bios. So take fashion, for an example. If you're hosting a fashion event and you want to target people within a specific location, it does geography as well. If you want to target people in Glasgow, as an example, who are interested in fashion, you can target people with fashion, blogging, lifestyle, clothes in their bio, and who live in Glasgow, and put your tweet directly in front of them, whether or not they follow you. So, yeah, oh, fantastic. There you go. And that's what Twitter ads effectively allows you to do. And then, see, Twitter ads is very powerful, but it's actually run on a cost per impression lead. I think it's cost per impression. It is cost per impression, because I was thinking about Facebook, and Facebook's slightly different. So it can, depending on how many people you want to target, become a little bit expensive, but you can trial with a small budget. Facebook is also very powerful on the paid media platform, so you can target down to email address on Facebook now with advanced audience. So if you have an email database, you're starting and you want to grow your social audience, you can target everyone in your email database with a Facebook ad and get them onto your page, people that already have a relationship with you, and those are the people that are really engaged and the people that you can nurture on social. So both Facebook and Twitter ads are very powerful platforms.
Dan, thank you very much. If any questions occur to you later on, there he is, at Dan Spicer on Twitter. Thank you very much, Dan. We're going to move on, folks. You'll see in your programmes that we're wrapping up a wee bit later tonight. we're down for 7:15. It might be a little bit later than that, but you're in for some more great content in a moment from our final guest speaker, who we're delighted to have here. If you're watching the live feed, it's going to come to an end in a moment or two before our next speaker for reasons that will become obvious. But Gary is kindly modelling at the moment the Working Digital 2014 exclusive T-shirt. Now, earlier on, John McCann won one of these, and he got so excited he was tweeting about it. So we've got a couple to give away, a couple of quick quiz questions, and Gary will give the T-shirts to who's first with the correct answer. Yesterday, we had a terrific presentation from Martin Steele from AG Bars, representing Iron Brew. First person to tell me, in what year did Iron Brew go on sale for the first time? 1921. Wrong. Wrong. 1907. Wrong. Wrong. Correct, we have a winner. Congratulations, 1901 in Falkirk. Question number 2 for the final T-shirt. Oh, come on. There was a 1901 Right, final question for the exclusive limited edition, soon to be no more, Working Digital 2014 T-shirts, as beautifully modelled by Ayrshire College. Question number 2. What TV show did Amber Atherton achieve fame in? Correct. You sort it out, Gary. Question 3. What's the title of the song Grant Stott used in his viral video? It was over here somewhere, Gary. Yes. Right, we'll have one more. Which of the... Now, this is multiple choice. Which of these social networks is the oldest? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter, or is it Facebook? LinkedIn. It was Thea Newcomb, and you as well. LinkedIn is the oldest by about a year. That's us, we're out of T-shirts. Fantastic, thank you very much. If you need a Working Digital T-shirt, look at eBay. You never know what might happen over the next few days. A few college students trying to fund some nights out. Right, now, our next speaker could possibly maybe undo some of the work that we've been doing here at Working Digital over the last few days. We've been trying to encourage you to be social, encourage you to share, encourage you to embrace all things digital. One thing that I think makes me and Gary different from a lot of social and digital advocates is we don't shy away from the dark side. That we don't try and pretend it's this glorious utopia where everybody's smiling and happy. There's a lot of risk to us all as individuals and risk to our businesses as well. And we wanted to leave you with some food for thought, as well as all the good fun stuff as well. This is going to be a no-holds-barred look at the risks and dangers that we all face in this overly connected world. Today, our next speaker is representing Halogen Communications, but his consultancy work over the last few years has seen him collaborate with the British and American governments on cyber security. He's one of the world's leading experts on this, and it is too hot to handle, so we're just about to cut the live stream. Please welcome our final speaker for Working Digital 2014, Michael Williamson.